get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, good morning, folks. It's Freewheeling Friday, August 14th. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Guys, follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit, and PBD News, at PBD News. That's real hard. Got a lot I want to get through today. William Barr, that was an interesting and important interview on Hannity yesterday. We should talk about that. And something, who knows? We'll see what happens. If something does happen during the show, please alert us if Madam Producer misses it. All right. So get your questions in. It's Freewheeling Friday. All right. We will talk about PA. I see that question already. I know I sparked that on Twitter. I did that already. Look, if they're counting votes 3 days after Election Day, guys, do you trust the ward captains and in Philadelphia, you know, to verify? Say, who's going to be there to verify them? Who's going to verify these votes as they come in? Did you guys notice the differential in the vote between Election Day and the primary and 3 days later?
Maybe down in Brazil.
You notice, yeah, maybe they'll get down in Brazil to get out there and verify those votes. Did you guys notice that the vote differential wasn't that different on Election Day? And 3 days later, all those votes seemed to come in. They were like overwhelmingly Democratic. Nobody noticed that? All right. Listen, and then also today we will talk about the deal. That was a big deal. The UAE and Israeli peace deal. That was number one, a historic deal, but also number two, there's something that the DC foreign policy establishment, for those who don't know, I've been all over Wall Street. I was in international relations. If it's numbers, it's me. I used to love it, so I just decided I wanted a degree in it, right? Just because I loved it. So I like statecraft, all right? And something odd about it, right? Like liberals are always the party of academia. But when it comes to foreign policy, liberals can't tell they don't know their butt from a hole in the ground. All right. So It's dominated by realism, the school of thought that is called realism. And we're going to go over this. Foreign Policy 101, Foreign Policy 201 for Dummies, which was a series we did on People's Pundit Daily in light of that UAE deal. And I'll explain why. We tried to talk about the political impact yesterday, but I'll explain why it actually does matter when it comes to just statecraft. And why Ben Rhodes and all these other, Obama guys and girls, they just don't get it because they don't subscribe to that school of thought. And that's the one area in academia where academics sit back and just watch DC and like, oh my God, because they don't follow the empirical evidence at all. They don't even have the same worldview. And it's very frustrating to realists who can tell you why the world is the way it is and why states act the way they act and what motivates and drives states to do what they do. And that is something that is very disconnected from the foreign policy DC establishment. There's an old joke, actually, in foreign policy academia. If you can't defend your thesis and make it in academia, you could go work for the State Department. Because they push all the stupid theories that really, they don't make it in academia, folks. They get shredded. Bruce Russer, the democratic peace theory, we'll talk about all that. He could never defend that thesis, yet it is a predominant view in liberal internationalism and in neocons like Bill Kristol. And they think the most stupid theories are the way the world works. And they don't hold up to scrutiny. They don't hold up to empirical evidence, and they're god awful. Okay, so I just swapped over. I keep forgetting to do that, going over to the hard lines. Let's get into some of the data today real quick first, right? Should we do the, let's take the advanced retail sales number. Oh, and pivot counties. I put together a big list of pivot counties. I will talk about how many counties Donald Trump won in 2016, how many counties Hillary Clinton won. How many of those counties were counties that Barack Obama won, where they were, because we always talk about the battleground state pivot counties, also known as swing counties. We've always called them pivot counties. So does Ballotpedia now. And I'll take credit for that. All right. I will. I was the first one to call them pivot counties. All right. And then we always focus on those swing states, but there are pivot counties in places that you wouldn't even expect because we never talk about them. And it'd be surprising how much they can tell you on election day when you're looking around other places. So yesterday I got a great question. What counties are you going to look at on election day when results start coming in? And it was just a great question. I'm a nerd. My lights started going off, and my bell started going, and I wanted to bring this up in more detail today. Right. So actually, let's get through some of the economic data. I'm almost tempted to get through the bar interview because I'm afraid something's going to happen while we're talking because an announcement is imminent. I just wouldn't expect something huge today, folks. I would not. All right. I would expect a development, maybe some direction, but I really do think a lot of the Barr investigation is a way to tell the deep state to back off, let this election happen. You try to interfere again, and we're going to hammer you. All right. So we have John Durham waiting in the wings. And if you try to do something to interfere, we're going to put the hammer down. All right. So don't expect something huge. And I think Bill Barr said something during that interview that was very telling. But he also said something about mail-in votes that told me this time, Bill Barr gets it. Bill Barr gets it. It's not just about who wins or loses the damn election. We are this close to tearing each other's throats out and tearing each other's hair out and killing each other. We are this close. I really don't care what anybody says, how they say that's hyperbolic. In the grand scheme of history, folks, that is not hyperbole. We are right there. And to do something like this right now, because your phony hoax didn't work, because your collusion hoax didn't work, because your Ukraine scam didn't work. So to do this because you don't believe the polls that show Biden up by 7, by 100, whatever, all right, tells me they just don't give a damn what the consequences. And Bill Barr said something, and he gets it. He gets it. And of course, we'll play a clip from what he said about Bill Barr as well. All right. But first and foremost, let's get into some of this economic data. All right. Today was a little bit mixed, but nothing bad. And in fact, if you look back at some of the prior months that have been revised, it was actually really solid stuff going on here. All right. So let's do this. Killing that. All right, advanced retail sales. And I will, because I know it's Freewheeling Friday questions today. So I'll try to get through this pretty quickly. Advanced retail sales gained 1.2% in July. They were revised higher, though, for June and May. And we always talk about the prior months, but there are 3-month lags in some of these reports, this being one of them. The 1.2 was a little bit less than the economists expected, or our consensus forecast expected, but still pretty decent, headed in the right direction. These are not reports where you see these huge jumps, folks. You just don't. But we're trying to get these big chunks, 1 to 6, kind of chumps on the way back. This is just the end now, in the middle of that period where people just typically don't spend. And you'll see the year over year. It's actually way higher than the year over year. All right. But down still only slightly overall. So the U.S. Census reported advanced retail sales came in at $536 billion in July. All right. That's 1.2% higher than the prior month, but still a slight miss. But it's 2.7% above the July 2019 level for total sales. All right. And the May 20 to July 20 period are down just 0.2% from the same period a year ago. All right. So what does that mean? We're almost back to the baseline, the pre-COVID baseline. And I'm actually going to show you, if you look at it as a dollar perspective, then you will see the blip from the pandemic, and you will see where we are now. This, it's not what the markets wanted to see, but it's not bad either. All right. Forecasts range from a low of 0.7 of a percentage point to a high of 4. I would have loved to see something that high. The consensus was 2%. The percent change for June, though, was revised from up 7.5% to up 8.4. Here's the entire series data, right? So here you can see it obviously surpassed year to date. All right, there's the pandemic clearly, but you can see we're back up above pre-pandemic levels when we're looking at just simple dollars. All right, the markets love to look at that percent, and so does the media, because CNBC and all the rest of them are going to talk about that percentage number. But you can see clearly at the 1 year, look at the 1 year trend. We're now back above pre-pandemic levels when you talk about actual millions of dollar units. All right. Retail sales were initially reported to have soared 17.7% in May. That is a recovery of more than the loss in April, which was revised down again from 16.4 to down 14.7. So the pandemic was not, for retail sales, was not as bad as the initial advance estimate. That jump, by the way, of 17.7% revised up. So about 18%. That is the largest monthly gain ever on record, and it was far better than economists expected. Forecast for retail sales, less auto and gas, otherwise known as core retail sales. They range from a low of 0.5% to a high of 1.5%. The consensus was 0.9. The estimate, that should say for July. That's a mistake. We'll have to correct that. The advanced estimate for July, came in at 1.5, so higher than expectations. Forecast for retail sales, less auto, range from a low of 0.5 to a high of 2.9. The consensus was 1.5. That indicator came in at 1.9, higher than the economists expected. That's solid, all right? Let's keep blasting through. Let's go to industrial production before we get into specific swing counties in the Rust Belt. I'm like, that is what I wanted to do, but I'm like really worried that Barr's going to come out in the middle of this damn thing and blow a hole in my day. All right. He could. He really could. Or it could just be a statement from John Durham. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll just have to see. But let's look at industrial production, trying to get through as fast as humanly possible. Okay. I like this report even better. And I'm sure the markets are going to like it better too. Industrial production increased solidly in July. It's revised higher for June. Manufacturing continued to post solid gains. Capacity utilization rate beat the forecast. The Federal Reserve reported total industrial production rose 3.0 in July, a solid gain that matched right on the money the consensus forecast. That follows an upwardly revised 5.7% gain in June, which was initially reported at 5.4. All right, so June was stronger than we thought. All right. That's the short version. Forecasts for industrial production range from a low of 1.5 to a high of 4.7. The consensus forecast for total industrial production was 3. So again, right on the money. The total index is now only 8.4% below the pre-pandemic level, after posting the largest monthly drop in the 100-year history of the index in April. It was bad, if you guys remember. It was ugly. I had to come on here. I was like, it was like Dracula moment with the sun. It was horrible. And you could see we're not quite there yet. But, mining took it. Manufacturing is coming back the fastest. And in fact, this drive is driven by manufacturing. Utilities had a nice bounce this month. They said, unusually warm weather. Well, I'll get into it. That decline, of course, in April was the direct result of our reaction to the pandemic. Not the pandemic itself, because viruses don't cause economic slowdowns. Fear, porn, and panics cause economic slowdowns, and that is what happened. Manufacturing output gained a solid 3.4%. The largest gain in this, because there are subcomponents, was in motor vehicles and parts, 28.3%. That's a solid number. It's big. It's just huge, but it lost a lot. So you would expect, we need these big bounce backs. All right. Forecasts for manufacturing range from a low of 2 to a high of 6.5. The consensus was 3 on the money. So we came in a little bit higher. Good stuff, right? Mining production is having a hard time coming back because we do have quarrying and energy issues right now. So those were underlying. But that was after 5 straight months of declines. So at least it's a gain. The output of utilities rose 3.3%. Again, the Federal Reserve attributed this to, quote, unusually warm temperatures that increased demand for air conditioning. I'll take it. I'll take it any way I can get it. At 100.2% of its 2012 average, the level of total industrial production was 8.2% lower in July. I told you that already. Than it was a year earlier in July of 2019. Capacity utilization for the industrial sector rose 2.1 percentage points in July to 70.6. While that rate is 9.2 percentage points below its long-run average, it's 6.4 percentage points above its low in April and higher than the forecast. Forecasts for the rate range from a low of 69 to a high of 71.5. The consensus was 70.3. So a slight beat. All right. Good news, good news. All good things, all good things. What was that? All good things. What movie is that? All good things, all good things. You remember that? Oh, that Alec Baldwin. Along Came Polly. It's Alec Baldwin when he's telling Ben Stiller, you're going to do this? I can't even repeat some of it because YouTube will throw me off. All right. But funny as hell, Alec Baldwin was in that. I know half of you probably hate Alec Baldwin. That's just the nature of the beast these days. But funny stuff. We got to remember to laugh. Again, people, we've got to remember to laugh. All right. And that stuff was all good things. All good things. All right. You know what I'm talking about? Huh?
No, he's saying Olaf from Frozen. He does say that too.
He does? See, that's good stuff. Olaf's funny as hell. In the second one, because we have kids, we got a little girl. We have to go and see Frozen. You took her. She didn't want to go. You made her go. Yeah, Olaf is funny when he's retelling the story and he's like, and then they were dead or something. You know what I'm talking? Yeah, and the 80s music goes. Oh, it's good stuff. All right. While we have a little bit of time in between this, let me just take a real quick glance. I can't dig into it, but I will tell them what happened with the survey of consumers, which is the Consumer Sentiment Index. All right. Looks like it ticked a little higher. I was going to prepare people that actually this is up. This isn't bad at all. I was going to prepare people for a bad reading. Richard Curtin, the guy is like anti-Trump. And look, Rich, you are. Eat it. All right. You're anti-Trump. You love free trade. You're like Mitt Romney's best friend, kind of thing. Now I'm just playing around, but he's like that. All right. And he's like the ISM, where any tariff, they have nightmares about tariffs. Like their wives have to get them cold rags in the middle of the night because they wake up from nightmares and cold sweats, dreaming about Trump levying tariffs on like China or something. All right. That's who these guys are. So even when this index was booming, Curtin would be like, he'd always put something in his comment like, but, those tariffs could really that's BS. If you look at the consumer sentiment index under Donald Trump, it was historically strong. The reason why it wasn't higher is because Democrats were, and this was always the story with the survey of consumers, Democrats were just not reflecting reality and their perspectives and their reported feelings and optimism on the short-term outlook. You'd have Republicans and independents feeling like this is the greatest economy in the world. It's the American dream. I'm going to go out and buy a house. Yeah, And then Democrats would report like 30 points below, 40 points below. The highest gap ever measured was under Barack Obama. It was only 18 points between partisans. Democrats were so out in left field, so in not anywhere near the realm of reality. They were reporting like 40% differences in their optimism and their attitude. So that made it easy for this thing to take a dive when the pandemic happened because, we blame Donald Trump for everybody's dying. We told you it was going to die. People were going to die from Donald Trump. So the survey collapsed to what was essentially, all-time highs, longest run out of, and by the way, the average is what really he'll push when you look at his statements in the press releases. The average, it means a lot to him. Donald Trump had the highest averages under this index. Anyway, last month, it came in at 72.5 after popping back up pretty quickly. And then Democrats reshut down, fear porn went, full gear again. And then it hurt, and you could see it in the preliminary reading. This is the final reading, all right, I believe, right? This is the prelim. Consensus was 71.9. Range was 70.6 to 75. That's a little rosy. Came in at 72.8. Not, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that this month because the way that this index is, just certain things, it could have been worse. We actually could have seen a bit of a dip here. So the prior was 72.5. So we're up like 0.3 of a percentage point. I prefer personally, folks, the consumer confidence index. I like the way it's done better. It's run by Nielsen, which is to me a little bit more reputable. They're different indexes, but if I'm looking at what consumers are really going to do, there were some serious months of retail sales where they would come back gangbusters. Other indicators for consumer spending and the consumer sentiment index was not really reflecting reality historically. So when you compared these levels of spending from the consumer to the historic levels for the consumer sentiment index, it was never reflecting its full potential, or at least that's my opinion. And I'm not even sure if it's really an opinion. You can compare these things over time. And it's because of the way they conduct that survey. And it was like partisan views were bleeding into an economic survey. That's not right. Like that's falling prey to social biases and, partisan bias. That's not the way economic indicators are supposed to be conducted. So the Consumer Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index, the CCI, I've always liked a little bit better, and that hasn't nearly shown the problems that the Consumer Sentiment Index has. However, looking at both of those indexes, clear we're going to back because everybody was gung-ho about getting the economy back, and then Democratic governors and mayors and abused their authority with the stay-at-home orders in order to hurt the economy so Joe Biden can win an election. I mean, play these games, right? And it had an impact. You could clearly see it had an impact. Yeah, it's Freewheeling Friday. I'm not wearing a suit. Okay, before we take our little 10:30 break, I'm going to be on this show later at 4 o'clock. I think it's taped, but I'll let you guys know. It's this new show by Gottlieb. I don't know if you're sure I'm saying his name right. I am. I'm terrible. Look, I'm coming on your show. What else you want? I'll get it right. I'll ask him nice. I'll ask him nicely. I don't watch it often. I watched it when M. Joseph Shepard was on, and it's a show for thinkers. So I like it a lot. He's doing good stuff. I do. No, I do. I like his show quite a bit. And he emailed me and said we were going to go on. And I didn't. It's my fault. I didn't ask him whether this was a tape thing or not. But I wanted to let people know because it's all about polling. And he's doing something that I really think he had the Democracy Institute guy on, as I understand it. He had Shepard on. as I understand it. And they talk in much greater detail about why we can see polls the way they are. So I will, if it's not at 4 o'clock today, you guys follow my Twitter feed anyway. I'm going to put it on. All right. So that's that. And then also it's Friday. I got to start reminding people to watch the Don Smith show at noon. That should be always in my little spiel. Saturdays, guys, Don Smith and I recap the week, and go over what happened economically, what's going on politically. And it's a 15, 20-minute segment, but he always has a great show, right? So, and then, that's got to be put into my everyday Friday thing, Laura. Madam Producer, please remind me, because I'll go like this show with Gottlieb. I'll go on and I'll forget to tell viewers about, that's like,
and your viewers know.
They do, right? You guys are watching this show, right? You guys, I imagine my viewers like this show. They do. Yeah. It's cool. Honestly, guys, I'll be honest with you. I only saw it because I know Shepard. And he said, look, I went on this show. I had a good conversation. Check it out. Can you do me a favor? Retweet it. And I did. And I watched it. And it was good stuff. And look, because we need more people like him to do this stuff. Because if we take another hit in 2020 and there weren't some people out there saying, look, polling isn't a science. It's a bit of an art. If we don't have those people doing that, then it's over. Oh, he had on, okay, I'm looking at Irish Girl. He had on Patrick, right? I always forget Cahaley's first name, right? Listen, is Fox News before I go to the break, is Fox News going to apologize to Patrick for mocking him in 2016 and mocking him throughout? And then they finally, I will give them this, some Fox business people had him on after 2016, and they said, you know what? You were right. We were wrong. What's the deal? But generally speaking, we all know how I feel about Mr. Steiwalt. All right. He should never have been subjected to those kinds of criticisms. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Right? Anyway, now Fox has stolen Patrick's question about who do you think your neighbor intends to vote for? Yeah, we can't stand Chris Steiwalt either. Can't stand him either. Honestly, we have the best polling operation in the country. And then that thing with North Carolina on election day, right? They did that just because there had been people who told them they were going to be wrong in North Carolina. So their decision decks was spiteful, even though they knew they were wrong. And they kept North Carolina light blue for hours and hours and hours. Believe me, folks, they knew they were wrong. And they still kept North Carolina light blue. And then they've had people trashing Trafalgar all over their network. Are you going to apologize to Patrick now that you're taking his question to identify social desirability bias? And there's also absolutely no reason for you to continue to poll registered voters. There's just no reason. At this point in the game, we're in mid-August now. Start to at least try to identify who the likely voters are, because, folks, I got to tell you, it's not easy, right? When you go from registered voters to likely voters, you have to get a feel for it. It takes a little time, and then that screen will change. It'll tighten too, typically over time. You can't just jump in like mid-October over to likely voters. You can't do it. I loved how Gallup did it. They had a set time every year, every election cycle, where they would go from registered voters to likely voters. And you could expect it from them. You knew it was going to happen. It was never, a surprise, or arbitrary is the word I'm looking for. It was never arbitrary. You knew it was come Labor Day weekend, we were going to likely voters. Times have changed, though. People pay attention more because of social media a little bit. Maybe they just won't tell a pollster yet who they have decided, is going to be. But the bottom line is there should be some general idea by now who is the first large net. And you guys remember from the voter analysis, we should cast a very large net at the beginning, right? And I show you what that looks like in the voter file. At this point, you got to be casting your first large net of non-registered voters. So here, you already know who they are. And by the way, Barnes for the last 2 days has been talking about some of these crazy expectations of 180 million voters. Folks, if there are 180 million voters in 2020, something has gone seriously wrong. 137 million people roughly voted in 2016. That was an increase. Donald Trump got out low propensity voters from 2012 that did not vote. And in fact, like we've showed you before, did not vote in upwards of 10 years. If 180 million people come out to vote, something very, very diabolical has happened. Okay.
And then some.
And then some. That means they just started filling crap out, like in mass. All right. All right. Laura's got a question. Let me add her here. Whoop, I muted you. My fault.
You did it, not me.
Okay. Can you guys hear her? Yesterday it was like echoey. Like we can't pull it. Oh, that's what it is. Pull it up. Try again.
How
Now.
about now?
Up a little higher. No, that's not it. I don't know. Weird. You guys can hear her though, right? I don't know. I don't. I can't. It's strange. All right. Go ahead though. Go ahead.
Yep, they said they could hear me. So you just can't hear me because you're my husband.
Must be tuned out mode.
So a lot of your viewers are really wanting you to comment about Pennsylvania and the decision and how it's a disaster. And if you could please explain like how it opens up the floodgates to fraud. Because
his name is Joseph Cato. I wanted to just fix that and get that right. Joseph Cato is the name of
you're
the
so
interview.
delayed in that.
I know. I was checking while you were asking the question. All right.
Slacker.
Can we save the Pennsylvania question until after the break? Because I will just say this, because I'm going to talk about Barr's interview and why he understood it. Look, folks, what I'm saying is, and first of all, this is what happened. So the parties agreed. All right. The RNC essentially lost the main part of the lawsuit, though, which was that votes have to be counted on election day. What they did win is that they cannot be postmarked, which is what the show title's about, because I did want to spend more time on this than just answering a question. They can't be postmarked after. All right. And they, by the way, will not get the army of ballot harvesters, taxpayer-funded ballot harvesters that they wanted. So I'm not saying it's a complete defeat. What I am saying is the longer you give officials to count ballots after elections, the more fraud there will be, especially if these are actual paper ballots. Look, you know what? Let me just play this real quick. I don't take my word for it.
Constrained to observe that in my experience in New York, paper ballots are extremely susceptible to fraud. And at least with the old clunky voting machines that we have in New York, the deliberate fraud is way down compared to paper. When the machines break down, they vote on paper. We've had real problems. So there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. I'm simply observing that as a problem. There's got to be a way of getting the best of our methodologies.
But in fact, the MIT studies have shown that hand-counted paper ballots are among the most reliable. And at least if there's a miscount, you can discover it. You can't discover miscounts with these machines.
Okay, what Nadler is saying, however, is that it is if you count them all on election day and they get fed through the machine and those standards are followed. And those, there are deadlines in election laws, folks. Deadlines. You must have this total tallied by this time. There are reasons for that. Florida is among the most strict because of what had happened after the hanging Chad thing. And that's all I have to say about this. Hanging Chads. All right. There was never, in 2000, Bush won that election by a larger margin than his official vote total is even states. There have been, even by the Washington Post went back and redid that and wasted millions of dollars just to show that Gore lost by a larger margin. But that's not in the official vote total. The longer you give people to count these ballots, the more play they have to the more time and opportunity they have to play make and stuff the box, folks, and ring up the votes. That's it. You give them 3 days. Why is it? Why is it? All right. Are we supposed to believe some crazy, like, social scientific equation goes into why after 3 days and 4 days in the primary, there was overwhelmingly more Democratic votes coming in, because this is what we can expect from the wards that are run by Democrats. They will absolutely do this. And I have told you this before. We have spoken to Democrats. They fully expect Donald Trump to be leading in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm talking about Democrats who live in Pennsylvania and are operational in Pennsylvania. They fully expect Donald Trump to be leading in the state of Pennsylvania on election night. That's why they wanted 3 days to fix that. And look, if you just are naive enough to think they won't have a ton of ballots, faked with signatures, who's going to verify it? Who's going to verify those? Is anybody going to call you and say, we got a ballot from an address you lived at 20 years ago? We got a ballot request from that. Is this your signature? That's not going to happen. There has to be a deadline for vote counting, because the longer you give them to ring up votes, the more they will figure out something, and they will before election day. They will. If you don't think they'll cash, you think postmarks are expensive to people who want to win an election? That's crazy. They absolutely will have all these things ready to stuff, and they'll do it in 2 days, in 3 days, when Americans aren't really paying attention anymore. And even if you go back to recount it, what Nadler is saying there, even if you go back to try to verify it, how could you do that? Are you going to get people to canvass the streets, to go door to door and knock on people's doors? You're going to get them at the wrong address anyway, because that's part of what they're getting. They're still getting these ballots that are going out that are not to the proper addresses. So even if you were to try to verify this ballot, okay, let's see, this is Joe Smith's address. Let's go to 120 Maple Drive in Bucks County, and let's see if Joe Smith really voted. You're going to get the door and like Caroline Jones is going to answer. Joe Smith hasn't lived here in 20 years. And if you give them 3 days to do this, they'll do it. Just mark my words. Just mark my words on this. I don't want to be right. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. And I will say this, what Bill Barr said yesterday is totally real. It is totally on the money. It is really what this is all about. We are at each other's throats. We can't take an election like this, Lord. This country can't take another thing like that. We can't. The president's a traitor who stole the election because he colluded with Russia. That's what you told one half of the country. And now the other half is gonna be pissed that their guy was leading on election night. Yet 3 days later, he lost the election. This country is going to explode like a powder keg. You think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, did I get her name right?
No.
Are going to heal that divide? Oh my God. First of all, it'll be Kamala Harris or Kamala Harris, what the hell ever you pronounce her damn name.
Harris.
Because Joe will be, he'll be living in Lee County, Florida in 6 months. He'll be living at the Villages in 6 months. Are you kidding me? So we're going to have to rely on her to do it. It's bad. It's bad. It's very, like Barr said, it's very irresponsible. Anyway, before he marches to the microphone or somebody leaks something to the press, let's just run the clip on the Durham probe.
There are two different things going on, Sean. One, I've said that the American people need to know what actually happened. We need to get the story of what happened in 2016 and 17 now out. That will be done. The second aspect of this is if people cross the line, if people involved in that activity violated the criminal law, they will be charged. And John Durham is an independent man, highly experienced, and his investigation is pursuing apace. There was some delay because of COVID, but I'm satisfied with the progress. And I've said there are going to be developments, significant developments before the election, but we're not doing this on the election schedule. We're aware of the election. We're not going to do anything inappropriate before the election, but we're not being dictated to by this schedule. What's dictating the timing of this are developments in the case, and there will be developments. Tomorrow there will be a development in the case. It's not an earth-shattering development, but it is an indication that things are moving along at the proper pace as dictated by the facts in this investigation.
All right, so that's what I'm saying. So don't expect something, to be this giant bomb, but there will be. I guess that wasn't in that clip too. One of the things I really wanted to say, and we'll talk about this more when we get back from the break, but I just need 30-second break for water. I'll take the hour break in a little bit. But he said that the way that he came back, and this is what we heard. I didn't know Bill Barr that well, but he said that he came back into government because of faith and trust in the institution, and not just a perception, but an actual, in practice, two-tier justice system and a double standard in the justice system. And that is the entire reason why he came back into government. And you know what? I'll tell you some stories about what we heard in a second. Give me 30 seconds. We'll be back from break in a hot minute. It's not just water. It's like I got right. I got issues. Anyway, yeah. So when you guys might remember, it was a state event, the death of George Herbert Walker Bush. Okay. The President Trump met GW, the former president, at the White House, and the Bush entourage at the White House. At that time, there was a significant lobby for John Ratcliffe to be appointed the Attorney General. And in fact, the president likes John Ratcliffe quite a bit. And the Bush family used the death basically of Poppy Bush to say, why don't you pick somebody more respected by both sides? The Bush thing, folks, we don't want to tell you how to make your decision, but we would just suggest that you pick William Barr, a wonderful man, right? I didn't really know that much about William Barr. I was entirely, I remember the Herbert Walker presidency, but not that in depth. I'm not that old, I'm creeping up there, but I'm not old enough to remember that in detail. So all I know is what the history books say and what people tell you. Anyway, the overwhelming theme was that William Barr is an institutionalist, all right, and that William Barr was very, very, very concerned about the two-tier justice system. And that he really didn't want to go back to work in the government, but he would if it meant trying to clean this up. All right. Even though, apparently he fully understood. And I think some of the things that were told us are pretty clearly true now, just from the actions William Barr has taken and just kind of the statements he makes. They knew what they were talking about. But anyway, that basically you hear, though, in this day and age, you hear that word institutionalist, and it can scare you if you're on the Trump side of things, because you can think, well, the institutions haven't done very good lately. And typically that means protecting the institution over doing the right thing, okay, or doing what is just, okay. With William Barr, it's actually kind of funny because it's the real definition of institutionalist, where sometimes you have to protect the institution from itself and that its own actions have to be policed by its own, because it has shaken the faith of the public so badly that it's not good enough to have an outside force come in and kind of clean it out. So it really has two choices, or it's two paths it can take. One, police itself and reinstill faith in the institution, or you could continue on and have no faith in it, right, and just be a joke politicized agency, which is what justice had become. And so that comment on Hannity yesterday, he's followed up with saying the way out of this, though, is not to do what, and he really was about to say our enemies kind of thing, have done, but you don't do what the other side has done. You don't play this tit for tat game, which is the word he used. You prosecute me, I prosecute you. You do what is just and right within the law. So he's not going to set John Durham on this. And John Durham wouldn't do it, by the way. Even if he told him to do it, John Durham would not do it. That's not the kind. There's also an article on People's Pundit Daily about these two men. You guys should look it up if you haven't already. Their careers, their histories, and the kind of people they were, and how both the right and left had trusted them and respected them for decades to handle the most sensitive cases the national security apparatus has had to face, the worst reckonings, like CIA interrogations and lost tapes. All right. All of that. And basically, with Trump, though, all these things go out the window because the goal, of course, number one, is to get Donald Trump. So if you're not out to get Donald Trump, then you're immediately like a partisan hack for him. Even though, Eric Holder can call Barack Obama his wingman, can flatly say, I'm his wingman. But somebody like Bill Barr is unwilling to break the law or abuse the law to get what the national security apparatus wants, and he becomes a partisan hack. So he's willing to just take that and take it. He's just willing to take it on the chin. And that in the end, there will be probably a lot of Trump supporters who are unhappy with the final resolution of this, but he was pretty clear in stating that the one of the primary goals of this investigation is to explain to the American people that this was a fraud, that Russia collusion was a fraud and an injustice, and that it was perpetuated on you. So that isn't the same thing as the goal of this investigation is to hand down indictments on everyone who could possibly be handed down indictments. Folks, they'd be prosecuted in the District of Columbia. They'd be prosecuted maybe in Northern Virginia. 4% of DC voted for Donald Trump. It's impossible almost to get a jury to convict even a scumbag like James Comey without overwhelming evidence. And I mean, of an egregious crime, not just, Jim Comey leaked to the New York Times memos that were, had classified information because he was trying to get the appointment of a special counsel. That's not good enough. That is a story to tell the American people. That's what Barr is trying to say. Now, if there are egregious offenses like altering documents, all right, then that's different. It's just, I guess, our definition, Laura, of what an egregious offense is. Like a secret, here's where I know I'm going to part with them on this, all right? A secret spy court where the plaintiff or the defendant, has no representation, is not represented at all in the court. There's nobody arguing on their behalf. And then you have the prosecutor, the state, able to just hand out willy-nilly whatever argument they feel is convincing enough to get a warrant to spy, to violate the Fourth Amendment rights of an American citizen. When you lie to that court, whether you knew you were lying or not, it was incumbent on Rod Rosenstein. It was incumbent on Sally Yates. It was incumbent on James Comey. And, to know whether or not the information they were submitting to this super secret court where the defendant has no representation, whether or not that evidence was true. It was incumbent on them to do that. These were supposed to be, if you guys remember, FISA has been around for a while, but the expansion of the court and the powers after 9/11, this was their argument that there were going to be these strict safeguards and that if anybody violated these safeguards, they would be punished severely. Nobody remembers this? This was the argument. And we roll back the Patriot Act a little bit, but really, come on, let's get real. They still got everything they wanted. Robert Mueller, who was the director of the FBI at the time, he got everything he wanted to fight the bad guys. So the good guys would have the tools to fight the bad guys. It seems to me they've missed myriad terror attacks because they're too busy climbing up the telephone pole outside of Trump Tower to do their damn job. Nobody's been punished. We've put the stats up for the FISA court before. The FISA court almost never denies the plaintiff, which is the state, their request, which is to violate the Fourth Amendment rights of American citizens, constitutional rights of American citizens. Folks, it's abysmal. Out of 2,000 and change applications, they were denied like 3. 2 were able to come back and give clarifications. And that's it. That's all. They get it all the time. So that is an egregious violation to me when James Comey says, I certify that everything in here is true, when he damn well knew it was not. We know now from evidence and from testimony, we know that they knew the dossier was bogus, that it was bunk. We know that they knew that Christopher Steele was not a credible source. We know that they knew that his former colleagues at MI6 had serious concerns about where Christopher Steele's loyalty lied. We know they knew all of this. We know they knew that it wasn't sourced by these, like, it wasn't an intelligence document. It was the drunken rumor of some idiot, assistant at the Brookings Institute and the people he surrounded himself with, and a couple Russia disinformation things whispering in Steele's ear. And they knew that crap. So that, to me, is an egregious violation. When you alter a document, an FBI document, that's an egregious violation. When you, we lost a 302. Folks, FBI agents don't lose 302s, which is the document that details the interview of a suspect, a witness, whatever. Okay? And you look at the difference in the 302s from that investigation, how they were handled versus Hillary Clinton's. And there were people, by the way, in the FBI who didn't believe Mrs. Clinton when she said a million times to the FBI agents, I can't remember. And he shut it down. He stopped them in their tracks. He shut it down. And that's why the people who were in charge, to make sure that they wouldn't figure out whether Mrs. Clinton really just had some like momentary lapse of amnesia every time something serious. The answer to those questions were consequential. And she just kept having these momentary lapses. There were people who were deeply suspicious about whether that was authentic, but they shut them down. All right. So you put it all together and it's, pretty clear. I want to say this. You guys are mine if they are getting, looks like Rasmussen tweeted it. Hold on one second. Looks like Rasmussen tweeted it. So I want it. I've been holding out, and it's kind of embargoed until 11 o'clock. Interesting thing I want to go over real quick. CNBC, they have Harris net unfavorable by a few points. We told you during the Democratic primary process, she was the least liked candidate. I imagine she'll get some sort of bump. Rasmussen has her about even as to, who has a, what is it now? It's a little bit, it's like 49. So she's plus like 4 in Rasmussen unfavorability. Not fantastic for somebody who ran for president. Then again, Donald Trump's aren't great either. Little nugget, however. Are you more likely or less likely to vote for Joe Biden now that he has chosen Kamala Harris as his running mate? Okay. 24% say more likely. 24% say less likely. Half, even 50, say it will have no impact, and the other 3% flatly say they are not sure. How likely is it that Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States? 17% say very likely, somewhat likely, 26%. All right. So taken together, you're looking at 45% of the country who believe that Kamala Harris is more likely to be president of the United States. This is the interesting nugget in this stuff. While black voters are more likely than white and other non-white voters to have a favorable opinion of Kamala Harris, or at least a somewhat favorable opinion. Blacks say 37% very favorable. Whites only 28%. All right. They are also not as likely to say that it will have an impact on their vote. So the idea that picking Kamala Harris was going to shore up that black vote, that it's not good enough to say black, honestly, African-American vote, because that's the specific problem that Joe Biden has. It's not looking like that's going to be the case. Black voters at 37% are more likely than white voters at 28%, and voters not affiliated with either party, 25%, to hold a very favorable view of Harris. But black voters are also less likely to vote to say that choosing Harris means they'll vote Democrat next year. So mission not accomplished as of now, I'd say. All right. It's got a lot of work to do. It didn't have the impact that I think they would say they were trying to get, which is, or maybe they wouldn't even say it. Maybe they'll lie. But the bottom line is Joe Biden was like stuck, mired in the low 80s. He's lower than Hillary Clinton was at this period. That's a serious problem. The reason why he's got a lead is because of white voters. By the way, you'll notice the Fox poll is now down to Biden +7. Okay. That is 1 point different than where the Fox poll was for Hillary Clinton. So this idea that this was like some, historic lead that nobody could ever catch is total bunk. And I've been over it with you before. I don't have to go over it again. But notice how fast everybody is hurting. And a great tip on who sourced the Fox poll. 76% say they favor wearing masks in public. And what that really means is 76% of Americans in Metro America, because we can't reach anybody else, all right, 76% is extrapolating what we could get out of Metro America to the other counties we couldn't reach, favor wearing masks in public. Folks, the only people who don't leave Metro America would think they have an accurate result. That is ridiculous. All right. Ridiculous. There's not even, I would wonder, honestly, Laura, I would wonder if 75% of Metro America even favors wearing masks. I mean, I honestly would doubt that. We're going to ask that question. We're going to ask that question. You know what? We're putting that question in the survey. We're going to do vaccines. That's going in the survey. I want to know what we find about mask wearing, because
I'm not taking a vaccine.
Yeah, I'm not, you know what? And yesterday, can we mock, before we go to break, which is 3 minutes, can I mock this idea about Joe Biden mandating that we're all going to wear masks in public? Joe, you can kiss my rosy red Italian butt. I am never going to wear a mask in public because you mandated it for something like coronavirus. I'm not doing it.
What did the doctor say the other day?
Yeah, that soon, and no joke, soon they're even going to be, that we're going to have to wear them in the house, and then they'll be dictating, Democrats who have long said that you have to keep out of people's bedrooms are going to be dictating that we have to wear them in the house. Does that mean during intercourse? Spoken like people who don't get intercourse, all right? Who don't get much of that. No, I want to say this, because if you aren't wearing a mask during that, Laura, that's the least of your problems. This is like, because it's so stupid, it has to be addressed. I know it's like got some people uncomfortable right now, but that is the least of your problems, folks. The least of whether or not you're wearing a mask. I guess mommy and daddy didn't go over this with you about what goes on behind the door, but the mask is not going to help you at that point. How much dumber are we going to get? He was serious with that. He was dead serious. I don't know what we're going to do. I really do. I don't know when people are going to just eventually they'll snap. There will be. But we're going to ask that question because I frankly don't believe that 76% of Americans favor wearing masks in public. I don't believe.
You can tell, though, because people who keep walking back to their cars to get a mask because they forget.
Yeah.
That just tells you it's not in their everyday repertoire.
I guess I'm sure it depends where you are. Like, I don't want to say, I don't ask his permission to say it on air, but we have a family member, folks, who stayed behind and still lives in New York. All right. New York City. And we have a bunch of them actually, but that I could see just from talking with him, there seems to be more of a willingness to wear it in those areas, but it's ludicrous to believe that would still require the overwhelming majority of suburban, non-metro suburban America and rural America to buy that. Now, we've driven through all areas of the state trying to get a feel, and I did this with the other battleground states as well. I try to get a feel of whether or not culturally there's something like an underlying shift, maybe. Folks, you won't see it. Everybody thinks this thing is overblown in non-metro America. Not everybody, but more. And people laugh at the mask wearing. I'm going to ask the question. I just don't buy it. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you, whoa, look at this. Look at what we found. We're wrong. Apparently, the willingness to wear masks is a lot more than I thought. Well, kudos and apologies to Fox News. All right. But I just don't buy it. I think it's a pretty strong indication you missed a large section of the public, which would give me pause about the rest of my results.
And we're not anti-mask. Somebody made a comment. We're not anti-mask. We just don't believe that.
Listen, folks, can we get the real? Is it here? Do you have it? I'm going to take a break in a second anyway, and I'll tell you what we'll look. I have a real N95 mask to show. I keep forgetting to do this. We're not anti-masks, but you're being duped. This, which we ordered, specifically came and said, not for medical use. N95 masks that you buy at Walgreens are not the same as N95 masks that you could get at a hospital pre-pandemic. Okay. They are very different, constructed very differently. This is to make you feel better. We're not we're just pro-science and pro-data. Give me the damn data on it. The N95 masks everybody is wearing in public, stupid bandanas. The only science we've seen is that virus particles are too small to be stopped by those masks. 60% get in through the front and the other 40 gets in through the sides. They're not typical N95 masks, or what, even 3M would make for the. We went through the VA facility, Malcolm Randall, in Gainesville, Florida. They showed us very different, the differences. I'm not, coming up with this on issues I don't understand. I'll ask the people who do, and they will tell you they don't. There's no real science to back it up. And if you are not a trained person to wear these masks anyway, you're not gonna be doing it properly. It's not like some force field. And by the way, there's a ton of science to suggest that mask wearing may in fact hurt us in the long term. All right. So what Laura and I were doing was and for the kids too, because when they go back to school, they have to wear some kind of protection in designated areas. We're going to go with the shields. We're going to go with the shields. All right. That's what we're going to do because it just seems like a better option. If you can point me to a consensus, all right, Mr. or Mrs. You're anti-mask. If you can point to a consensus study, I'm not talking something that's been peer reviewed and has gone through scrutiny, then we'll see. But you can't do that, which is why you had Fauci 3 months ago tell you they don't work. Then they do. Then maybe you should. And by the way, when I go out, I don't wear one. If they worked, he'd wear one.
You mean Fauci?
Yes. If they worked, he'd wear one. All right. He doesn't follow his own rules. This is to make you feel better. It's fear porn. And when we come back from the break, speaking of fear porn, there's this thing in was it USA Today, ABC News, maybe? I gotta shame it. 2,000 infections, and we're supposed to shut down the schools all over again. There are 50 million children going to school in this country. I want to show you what kind of decimal point you need to how far you got to move the decimal point to make that a percentage of the overall school age child population in this country. No context to this article, just straight garbage, trash, fear porn. And I want to do that too when we get back. All right, we'll be back in 2 minutes. I'm going to grab some water. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me at People's_Pundit right there. It's 11:04, so I'm going to blaze through this as quickly as possible. Don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. Excellent, folks. Becoming its own animal. It's great. And don't forget to subscribe, of course, if you want to support the show. That's the best way. Get all the economic indicators. Get some data for your dollar. I cannot promise you that we will cover everything. I can promise you that we will cover it better and with more context and more objectivity than you'll get anywhere else. All right. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Yeah, there we are. Now we're back. All right. Trump is not losing older voters because of masks. All right. The slip with older voters started before that ever even became an issue. And it is because of how he handled the pandemic, not because of masks themselves. All right. That's number one. That's because of their concern for how he handled the pandemic. All right. And ultimately, the bottom line is, I don't care. Maybe you think you're watching a different show. This is not the Trump show. All right. I don't care about who wins or loses more than I care about the truth. The truth is more important than who wins or loses an election. Nobody, not a Democrat, not a Republican, is going to take my truth from me. And you shouldn't let them take it from you either. That is more important. What is right is more important. That's how you found yourself probably 3 months ago, supporting the lockdown foolishly, which is why Trump really is slipping right now. And by the way, he's on his way back right now. But the reason why he slipped the way he did is because he ran in 2016 as the guy who wouldn't let stupid experts like Dr. Fauci destroy your life. And it was a working, forgotten man and woman. And who did it hurt the most for him to listen to the stupid, the expert, the great and powerful Dr. Anthony Fauci? And, I actually like Deborah Birx. I do. I know people are going to give me a hard time over that. I don't think she's the majority of the problem. I don't think she ever really was. I just tend to disagree with her on some things, but I think she's been a little bit better than Dr. Fauci has been. Nevertheless, he was the guy who was not going to let the experts and the geniuses destroy your lives anymore. It went right. Mask wearing does not go to the heart of Donald Trump's justification. That is what dictates who wins and loses elections. Masks have never been a variable in an election model before, okay? And it never will be, all right? So while there are some people, of course, that would just say, hey, Donald, why don't you just wear the damn mask, all right? And I do hear from them all the time. That's not going to dictate their vote, all right? This is what I want to get into real quick before we move on to questions. All right. And actually, I will make it that big. All right. Yeah, that's my response. Let's look at the ABC thing. New. The U.S. attempt to reopen schools has turned into a slow-motion train wreck with at least 2,400 students and staff either infected with COVID-19 or self-isolating due to exposure. This is trash. This is fear porn trash. 2,400 students out of 50 million, folks, is this. 0.0048000000000000004% of the total population, and that's kids only. So I'm being generous because they included in that 2,400 staff. So I'm being generous. It's less than 10% of total hospitalizations due to seasonal flu each year, not even infections. So this is one of these articles, it's like, where how did it become the goal that we have to make sure there's not a single virus particle? We're going to stunt our children's growth because of fear porn like that? Crap, garbage like that? That is garbage. That is not journalism. There's no context in that story, nothing. It is still true that the risk to children from coronavirus is not only nil, but it is less than the seasonal flu and pneumonia, which is the greatest killer of all of the three. Pneumonia is far more dangerous to children than coronavirus. Seasonal flu was as well. All right? I mean, this is crazy. I really had to point this out. That was like what, written and paid for by the teachers unions? I bet. And you know what the tell was? That it was bought and paid for and written by the teachers unions. They included staff in there. They included staff. All right. The petri dish theory could only be true if children carried a high enough viral load, like they do the flu. They do. They carry a high enough load to transmit to adults as well. But coronavirus, like other SARS-related conditions, children don't carry high viral loads, so they don't infect children. Adults can infect children, but children don't infect adults. Not typically. Of course, you can find the one-off case. You know, you could go, right? I mean, that's what they do. They go find that 0.000400000000000000008. They go find it, and they're like, ha ha ha! I got you. I mean, it's ludicrous. Things in public policy, unfortunately, have to be weighed against each other. Are we going to let fear porn, and the Chinese, frankly, and clearly their allies domestically in this country, are we going to let our fear, our irrational fear, and the Chinese and their allies stunt and retard the growth of our children? That is what this comes down to. The overwhelming negative consequences from keeping these children home far outweighs 0.00400000000000008. Come on, folks. Come on. I mean, they can keep it going forever like this because the science is already pretty much beginning to show coronavirus isn't going anywhere. And in fact, other coronaviruses haven't. That's why we've never successfully been able to develop a viable vaccine for one. And I worry about this push to get this vaccine out. Operation Warp Speed. I applaud the president, of course, for trying to do something like this. However, we've done this before with very serious and even fatal consequences. Joe Biden did it during the swine flu. Barack Obama did it during the swine flu. They were supposed to have a vaccine within 6 months, 100 million vaccinations given out and dosed to the population. They met about 10% of that mark in their epic failure, and the vaccine turned out to have horrible consequences. And there are class action lawsuits over it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not taking your vaccine. All right? I'm not taking your vaccine, and I'm not wearing your mask by mandate. If this was like something like, Laura, the Ebola virus, pre-treatment, pre-vaccine, but was like coronavirus transmission rates that with the death rate, infection death rate, fatality rate of Ebola or something, then of course that would be rational fear if you were afraid of something like this, like that. And I have no problems with older people wearing masks if they make themselves feel better, because guess what? They are the at-risk population. So, but children aren't. It still doesn't mean it's going to help you, though, folks. That's the point. It still doesn't mean it's going to help you. Some half version of an N95 mask does not help you. It just doesn't. At least science doesn't conclusively show that it does. And if you haven't read that column by Jordan Schachtel, he's got a Substack. What a great column about it becoming a cult. I mean, it's like cult-like, and there's no science to back this up. And you just shame people who don't obey. It's very much the same tactic they're using on suburban white voters right now, and have been for years. It's a shame strategy. They want it to lead to a social bias. This way, it's not on policy or self-interest or what's best for them and their family. It's more of a shame. Like, I don't want to be known as the one who voted for Donald Trump. All right. Anyway, soon, should we just get into no, let's go back to the bar thing. All right. Again, I played the clip, but nothing has happened yet so far. I just want to wrap that up by saying, like, I would take the man at his word. Don't expect some huge bomb. Maybe there will be something in the future, but I tend to agree with Robert Barnes that this is really a way to say, don't try to interfere with this election again, like you did last time, like you did in 2018 and 16. If you do, somebody's watching, kind of thing. And the reason why, too, is because there's a lot of these shot across the bow moves the Justice Department's been making, but it's no real, I don't know. I don't want to say no real teeth. I don't want to say that, but I would just say, let's wait and see what the development is, I guess. All right. But it's 11:17. And can I start in, let me get Madam Producer's permission. Can I start in on the pivot counties, or do you want to?
Today is Freewheeling Friday.
That is a question, though.
Fine.
You
sneaky man.
I mean, who asked that question yesterday?
Which one?
The pivot county question. Somebody asked it.
Was
Raise your hand if you're the one who asked the Swing County question yesterday.
Yeah. You see, I delete them as you answer.
Oh, okay. All right, folks. I don't know who it was, so I'll credit where credit is due, right? If you tell me who you are. But other than that, I really can't. All right. But yeah, so in hold on one second. In 2016, okay, and I'm over here trying to tell if it is somebody who's like not, I just want them to know we're about to answer their question. So I'm like over here sending out messages. All right, but in 2016, folks, Donald Trump carried, and that's why you probably all have seen this map. Donald Trump carried 2,626 counties. That is compared to only 487 that Hillary Clinton carried. Obviously, high population centers. Of the 2,626 counties that Trump won, all right, there are 206 counties that we call pivot counties or swing counties. And that is counties that voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012, but then flipped their vote to Donald Trump. Out of all of the states, which there were 206 pivot counties in 34 states. Like I said, you'd be surprised at how many states had pivot counties that we never even discuss or talk about because they're not particularly competitive. Arkansas being one of them. All right. By far, the biggest pivot county state was Iowa with 31. All right. He carried, if you look at the East, and you know what? We must. All right. Let's bring up this article I wrote a while ago, Inside Donald Trump's Rust Belt Revolution. Okay. This is going to be a biggie. I'll keep it big, me small, so you can see it. All right. But I'm scrolling past a whole bunch of stuff. All right. That's the big picture. Check it out if you haven't read this. Iowa. In 2004, heavy evangelical turnout literally gave George W. Bush a narrow 10,000 vote victory over John Kerry. That broke down to 0.7 of a percentage point. In 2008, Obama hammered John McCain in Iowa, 54-44. And then in 2012, Republicans gained some back, but they still lost the state by 6 points, 52-46. Romney lost the state. In 2016, Trump demolished Clinton, 51.2 to 41.7. With the exception of Lynn, Johnson, and Scott, Trump flipped nearly all of the eastern counties in the state. Iowa was a big area, will tell us a lot on Election Day. Counting Scott County, which went for Obama by roughly 14 points and Mrs. Clinton by only 1.5, 18 eastern counties flipped from backing Mr. Obama in 2012 to backing Donald Trump in 2016. In the southern part of the state, Union and Clark counties, they backed Obama by 4 and 1 respectively. That went for Trump over Clinton by a 2-1 margin, both. That's a monumental shift. So Iowa was the biggest, and we can get into some of the other ones, but Iowa was the biggest swing as far as pivot counties. And when I look to see what's going to go on election night, I'm going to look at Scott County to see if Biden has made any gains from almost losing it. If it's further deteriorating, like Robert Barnes was saying, that would be a county that you would look at and you would say, oh, no, this is going to be a big vote for Trump in those working areas. But Union and Clark, the reason why they went so heavy too was because of that. If he slips from that 2-1 in like Union and Clark, then that could bode very badly for him in other places like Wisconsin, where like Rusk and Polk we talked about the other day, because there are areas of Wisconsin that look more like Iowa than they do Michigan and Pennsylvania. And while we consider them, that's why I want to put Iowa. And people always say, well, if Iowa's not going to be that competitive, if you don't think it's going to be that competitive, why is Iowa going to go into the Rust Belt Battleground poll? Because of what I'm telling you right now. Iowa had the biggest swing as far as pivot counties from Obama to Trump. And it has a great population that can tell us a lot about certain areas in other states, like Wisconsin, even Ohio to some degree, where we maybe can't reach those voters. Great. So if you're looking at something like a Rust Belt Battleground poll where there's 6 states, we're going to give a top line and then a result for each state, what we can projected vote share. Then that you have to put Iowa in there. It may not even be. It may only be 140 responses out of the entire sample of the Rust Belt poll. But those 140 responses are going to tell us a lot. All right. That's why. In Michigan, folks, Monroe, Bay, Eaton, Saginaw, and the big one, Macomb. Because in 2016, Michigan was the one state where Democrats could point to and say, we lost it because of turnout. They have an argument to make there. But not in Macomb County. Voter turnout actually rose 4%. In statewide, Michigan, Macomb County represented that jump. And yet still Donald Trump was able to, because he's going to lose Oakland and other areas, he was able to do so well in Macomb that you can essentially battle it to a draw. He's got to keep that up in Macomb. If Joe Biden is performing strongly in Macomb County, Donald Trump is probably not going to carry the state. All right. So Macomb is a big one to watch. And then Eaton, Saginaw, that will tell us a lot about how is that other vote holding up for him. Because it is possible to lose a pivot county like Pinellas County in Florida and yet still carry the state. But you have to make it up elsewhere, like Republicans did in Collier and in Lee. They just got bigger votes out of there. But so I look at Saginaw, Eaton, that'll tell us whether or not he could possibly, make up for that. Clinton won only 8 counties: Genesee, Ingham, Kalamazoo, Marquette, Muskegon, I don't even know. Oakland, Washtenaw, Wayne. And of course, I will look at Wayne for the simple fact to try to get an idea of what the turnout is. Hillary Clinton had almost 300,000 vote lead in Wayne, coming out of Wayne County. which was almost 80,000 less than Obama. That's why I say there is an argument to make that they lost Michigan because she didn't get the vote out in Wayne. And they know that. And that's why Kamala Harris is the running mate. All right? That's their sole purpose. And there was an article in Politico just before the decision that Kamala Harris, that voter enthusiasm among African Americans in Wayne County is abysmal for Joe Biden. They probably will not get to the polls for him. So Politico did their part. They played their role to make sure that Joe knew picking Kamala is the only way he can make sure that Wayne County's got enough votes. I'm still not convinced that's true, but we'll see. All right. And then in Pennsylvania, Erie, I know everyone's going to run to Bucks County. Mm-hmm. They're going to run to Bucks. They're going to run outside Philadelphia. Of course, they're going to want to see how many votes are coming out of Allegheny. Of course, and we will too. But immediately I'm going to look because the net since 2016 has been a net loss for Democrats in voter registration. Even though those areas that they're hyper-focused on have been trending away from Republicans, it was still a net loss statewide. Why? Erie. In Luzerne, there was some setbacks for Republicans over the last month or two, but it's nothing, But I'm going to look at Erie, Luzerne, because that's where those votes have come from. And it was just a huge Republican vote. Remember, 52 out of 67 counties in Pennsylvania are Appalachia counties, characterized, whatever you want to say, as Appalachia region counties. So when you see the Emerson poll, and I like Spencer, when you see the Emerson poll coming out with 52% suburban in their poll, rest assured they're off by like 10 points. All right. And then, of course, what is their definition of a suburb, which we got into in great detail on Wednesday. All right. But Erie is a very big one. Obama Biden carried Erie by 16 points. Trump flipped it by 2. And Erie has been drifting away from Democrats since. That is an area where, and it would be that kind of voter, where if Trump increases his margin in Erie from like 2 points to 10 points, then that stuff could happen. And that could help to offset some of those other ones that we saw not go particularly well. And again, Arkansas has got 1 pivot county. Laura, Florida's got Colorado, has 4. So, I mean, there are just these areas we don't talk about much, but the Rust Belt is what I'm focused on. Illinois had a bunch of them. All right. Which can also tell us Jefferson County in Florida, Monroe, Pinellas, that those are really the new Hillsboroughs. All right. Those are the kind of counties that will do. And then Dubuque in Iowa. I didn't point that out when we were talking about Iowa. All right. That's an area that went for, let me check my little notes here. Obama's margin of victory in Dubuque was 20.77. It was almost 15 points in 2012. And then Trump carried it by 1.23%. But I mean, you're talking about a 22 point swing since 2008 away from Democrats. If Democrats can edge some of that back, then that's going to tell us something. All right. And that is one area where they would think they'd be able to. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to go over a couple of those with you. It is 11:30. Let's leave some time for questions. All right. I'm with you, Laura. I'm with you. I got you. Let me get rid of that. Get your questions in, guys. Get your questions in. It is 11:30. I'm going to take a 30-second break. Get your questions in. And if don't, it looks like, don't forget, guys, if you're new looking at these numbers, I'm sure a lot of you are, don't forget to like the page on Facebook and People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. All right. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Get your questions in. If you send them through Periscope, if you send a comment on YouTube, if you send a comment on Facebook, whatever it may be, wherever you're watching, it'll all get funneled in. Laura will see you and we will try to get to them. 30 seconds, folks. Be right back. Yeah, but we're here to talk and debate, aren't we? Aren't we here to promote discussion, folks, right? We don't always agree with each other, but we're here to promote discussion. So I will take questions with people who disagree. That's exactly what we do here. All right. So anyway, let's bring Laura in.
My turn.
Let's bring Laura in. There she is. I'm even going to leave your little thing up. You're telling me I can't hear. Whatever. They can hear you. They can hear you. That's all that matters. What's the question, love?
Ooh, what'd I do?
I don't know. What'd you do? You guys can still hear her? I see you. You're in there.
All right, cool beans. Let's see, where is it? Ryan McCarthy. Thoughts on Rasmussen?
Oh boy, is Rasmussen good? That's a loaded question. All right. Listen, I will say this. They're very transparent with me. A lot of people in media don't like Rasmussen because they don't follow their little narrative. And that also because they will say that Rasmussen puts a lot of their data and their crosstabs and their transparency stuff behind the paywall. Okay. But that's because that's their subscription model. That's their business model. If a journalist or a data guy, a data journalist like me will call Rasmussen, they have no problem giving me their whatever it is, their internals, their raw, how they did it, how they conducted it, what percentage is online, what percentage is IVR. I will just say this, and we get along. I will say this. We've been the sponsor of their work before. All right. I think that I like adding text message components to cell phones. I just feel like the online panel has changed over the last 4 years quite a bit, and I got to try to compensate for that. I think black voter approval, I think maybe that their black samples are a little bit too conservative, I would say. I think Trump is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think he's going to increase his vote share among black voters because I've measured it myself. I just don't know how much of that increased approval is going to turn into votes, Laura. So I don't know how much it's going to turn, go from 8 to 12. Is it going to, I just don't see it. It's not going to go to 8 to 20%, folks. It's not. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Even Marist and Emerson, by the way, they have measured that as well. YouGov is around 16%. I actually think YouGov is probably a little bit closer with that. However, their national polling was if you go by the metric APOR used to use, even though they asked me to revise something, I should show people that about Rasmussen because they are so disliked by the liberal polling wing of the industry. It's dominated by liberals. It is. They, by their own method that they accepted for years as which one is to gauge margin of error or sampling error and who was the closest. In 2016, Rasmussen was the closest. We've differed on some stuff, like how they asked their congressional ballot. That's something I should bring up to answer this question. We word our congressional ballot very differently. I think they took a hit in 2018 and gave their critics ammunition to be able to attack them because of how they worded it. And then you saw like Nate Silver say they were the least accurate pollster when it came to the House vote. Their congressional ballot question is not specifically tailored to the House. And I disagree with them on how they word that question. It should be thinking about your the 20 whatever election. If the election for in your congressional district, if the election for U.S. Congress in your congressional district was held today, for whom would you vote? And they were very, generic about it and lumped Congress together. There are a lot of voters who just don't know the difference between, are you asking me about the Senate? Are you asking me about the House? And if you look, Republicans outperformed at the senatorial level than typical first-term incumbent midterms. So that could have been a big factor. Question wording can be huge. When it comes to Rasmussen's polling this year, their national vote clearly has been as big for Biden as some of the other pollsters, and now they're showing tightening. But their state-level polling seems to be a little bit farther. And I can't help but to wonder, because they're using IVR and they're using an online panel, I just can't help but to wonder, that discussion we had on what are the odds on Wednesday, folks. When it comes to Wisconsin, those other counties, I don't think our lead for Clinton was ever bigger than 6 points in Wisconsin in 2016. I'd have to take a tail to I'd have to go and look just to make sure, but that was only because of so many of those voters saying, I'm undecided. So there's a natural built-in, more people who are decided early are decided for Democrats in the state of Wisconsin. So it's a little bit harder for Republicans to take a lead there. But if they do the last minute. So I can't help but to think they should really expand maybe to some, you can ask it through online. You can have them conduct the interview online, but I can't help but to think maybe just add some cell phone text message mode, to your sample. I like, and this is why when you guys see the Rust Belt Battleground poll, I told this to everybody who was trying to, when they were talking about me doing this, I have to add 3 data collection modes. So you're going to see a disparity between us and them because they have crowdfunding polls too. You can do it for $2,500 a state if you're only going to IVR and include a 20% online sample. You have to have a diverse data collection mode to expect to reach the people that we want to reach. So it's just going to be the way it is. But yeah, I think they're honest is the answer to that question. Mm-hmm. And I have never had Rasmussen tell me, no, you can't see my data. That has never happened. I have found things screwy. And I'm like, hey, how did you get that? Can I see your raw data? I've never had a problem. I don't know why some of these other people, I just don't get it. Maybe, I could tell you it's probably because they didn't ask. I can't tell you how many journalists I've said, do you want to see my data? Do you want to see this? They're lazy. They'll smear the hell out of you without asking the question. They will. It's unbelievable. The one from Peter at the Epoch Times and Mark Caputo at Politico. They're the only ones who have, ever said, oh yeah, great, let's take a look. All these years. I know must be crazy, right? Because, they got opinions about everybody, but they're real quick to smear everyone, including Rasmussen, but they didn't actually ask for anything. They don't ask, and believe me, we are way open. We'll invite anybody to come and look. And in 2016, when we were doing something very different, we wanted them to. Nobody did, folks. Nobody did. We're doing something different. We don't believe polls swing like this. We believe it is an artifact of the poll itself, a data collection artifact. And we're doing something different. Come check it out. No takers. None. They just had their opinions still, but no takers. All right. All right. Keep going. Let's get a question from, is he still here? Hey, Jack, you still here?
No, he just...
Did he bounce? I don't know. Let's take a
just,
question for Jack if he comes back in, though. I want people to be...
he just disagrees with you about why...
Well, if he's got a question, take one of his questions. But let's move on to the next one right now, okay? Here, let me throw you back in here so people can hear you a little bit better. I X'd her out before.
What else is new? All right, so our next question is from Irish. She wanted to know about the Pennsylvania with that filing, and Larry Schweikert thinks it's good for Trump.
It's better, Larry, than it could have been, but it's still not great to let them count votes 3 days after election. I mean, I come from Florida. I've been around the Broward machine for years. It's not, the longer you let them do this, the more opportunity they have to play games. Ballots will show up out of nowhere. Mark my words. They will come out of nowhere. Oh my God, so-and-so went home and put the ballots in their trunk and completely forgot. And then you guys also, because the media will never tell you, when those ballots come in Broward County, for instance, Laura being my witness here, they were like 85-15, 95-5, 90-10. They are so lopsided. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The precinct cannot be the explanation for it. So we know by the time these votes all start to trickle into the system and get slipped through the machine, we already know what the breakdown is for election day voting. So election day is going 62-40, 62-38 for the Republican. In-person early vote is going 70-30 for the Democrat. Absentee ballot is going 60-40 for the Republican, or 55-45 for the Republican, whatever it may be. Each precinct starts reporting those numbers. We already know the breakdown. It is not normal or common for these mysteriously reappearing ballots in those very same precincts to come in at a different break than the votes that were counted before them. All right. So it's still, you would expect them to still be like the other in-person early vote break. It doesn't make any sense. And that is what happens. And I'm telling you, just mark my words. It's better than letting ballot harvesters run all over the place, but they're going to do it anyway. They're just not taxpayer funded. It won't be as big. So if you're using on relative terms, then Larry's right. It's good for Trump because there won't be an army of taxpayer funded ballot harvesters out there doing it. They'll just get their cousins and friends and activist friends and to do it. It just won't be as big of a scale. But I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
So Lamp Crow wants to know, would a safe alternative be going back to literally pulling the levers? And also wants to know if you saw the Kushner tell Brett Baer, who was smugly talking about Fox polls.
I didn't. But look, Jared, you want some ammo? Pay attention. Okay. Fox missed every single battleground state in 2016. In 2018, they thought Tennessee was going to be competitive. They underestimated Marsha Blackburn by outside the margin of error. In Missouri, they had Claire McCaskill and Josh Hawley in a dead even race at 42%. Josh Hawley smacked her. He spanked her. In Indiana, they had the incumbent Joe Donnelly up 7 points on Mike Braun. Mike Braun won that election by almost 7 points. Okay, so it was an incomprehensible miss. Fox News, their polling operation is not a good polling operation. And they do talk smug about him, and it drives me nuts because like Chris Stirewall will come on and he'll not only talk smug about him and tout how they have the best polling operation in the world, but I've seen him actively put down others like Doug at Gravis, all right, who, by the way, had a better record in 2012 than Fox News had, all right? They claim that it's a bipartisan polling operation, which I do love to see. I at least like the idea. But what they really have is a liberal, a very progressive liberal, and a very typical Trump-hating Republican polled together. And, that's not bipartisan. That's not, especially since that kind of Republican he represents a dwindling share of the Republican Party. So Republicans overwhelmingly, and as a matter of fact, at historic percentages, supports Donald Trump. And Trump's brand, at least on the issues, maybe not his personality, but his brand on the issues of Republicanism. They don't represent Republicanism. And in fact, if Donald Trump loses, you're not getting your party back. Just to tell all you guys out there. Even if he loses, it still ain't happening. The base will blame you for it, at least in part. You'll be branded as traitors. You're never getting your party back. Brett, you're never getting the party back. Okay? Bill, you're never getting the party back. It's over. Just tell people you voted for Hillary Clinton and you intend to vote for Joe Biden and that you're no longer Republicans. Stop lying to them and pretending like they're stupid and they don't realize that you are a liar. It's not happening. You're not going back to the Bush era. It's over. It's over. Just get over it or start another party. Knock yourself out. It's over. All right. Yeah. And then I didn't see the Jared Kushner thing, but it does remind me about that. Can I not get into that? That was a question about, if anybody asks about the deal, I wanted to show something. No. Go. Keep going.
Right. Greatest Ever wants to know, do you know anything about South Carolina District 1, Joe Cunningham against Nancy Mace?
Yeah, I don't. I don't like to rely on public polling in South Carolina. We've got, I think I touched on this yesterday, or maybe it was a couple days ago, about that race, and then also North Carolina 11. We see this every damn year. We do. And they're like, oh my God, South Carolina's tightening. And then it ends up really not being that tight. Can we take a rain check on that until maybe I see something from somebody I trust? I don't want to comment on it from it not, being, it's just not true. I mean, South Carolina's not there yet. North Carolina's not there yet. I mean, they really allow themselves to believe this stuff, Laura. If North Carolina 11 is still 7 points, then there is no way that the other one is go. It's just give me a rain check on it. Because we see this. And then also, by the way, South Carolina is like their new Georgia. Let me just put it that way. All right. Georgia is getting more competitive, but go look at the Georgia voter file analysis. Still very difficult, even in a D+10 election. That's why Stacey Abrams lost. It's still very difficult for them to win Georgia. Atlanta Constitution Journal is one of the worst polls out there. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
This question shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds.
Richard Jewell, folks. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
They were the ones who did that.
I know. Rich Finder wants you to just clarify about Pennsylvania. PA is not mailing ballots out. Everyone on the rolls. Some people are confused by this and think PA is like Cali.
No. But they will if they request them. And this is what I'm trying to explain to people. Some like Nevada or California. And because Nevada. I always get yelled at. It's Nevada. See, I do like saying these things correctly because if you go to talk to voters in their states and you're wrong, like, yeah, Missouri, I got right. We say Missouri. And they'd be like, listen, you stupid New Yorker, it's Missouri, right? I'm like, oh my God, I could have swore it's Nevada. But anyway, or Nevada. Which one am I saying now? Nevada. It is Nevada then. Okay, whatever. I'll get it right. I promise I'll fix it if I got it wrong. Nevada. Anyway, yes, you have that state, right? Which all that started in Clark County and then California as well. But yeah, is she right? If she's right, say she's right. I think she might be right. I try though to get it right. I do. All right. But anyway, yes, but there will be requests for them. It's not just people going out and searching for them, right? So these invitations are going out, and they're going out and will go out to addresses. She's right. Damn. Look, and you know what? I say it right normally, right? Don't I? I don't?
Never.
Again? Okay. I am so sorry about that, folks, out there in Nevada.
I can't say that one even if
all
you
right.
paid me to.
But anyway, the problem is if an employee at the Treasury Department who is tasked with keeping top secret financial documents and records from staying out of the public eye, if she's willing to leak that thing to hurt Donald Trump, if somebody who works for Richard Burr and has worked for the Senate Intelligence Community for decades is leaking stuff to hurt Donald Trump and is never, think about the roles of people who have been willing to violate their oaths, the law, whatever it is, just to hurt Donald Trump. And then think about whether or not if you got a valid request from somebody maybe who no longer lives at your address, all right? Or not even, if you can request that ballot, all right? They're going to do it, folks. And in fact, there are going to be there are going to be teams of people they're working right now. They're going to figure out, they're going to get guys like me to scour the voter rolls to see who legitimately already claimed their ballot and who didn't. And those who didn't, and there's tons of them. Look, in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia alone, we did this the other day. In Philadelphia alone, they have quite a huge pool of people to tap that have change of address flags, that are dead, or for some other reason are labeled inactive because they haven't voted in years. They will still be able to get them. And as long as they postmark them, they will count them over the next 3 days. And by the way, I wouldn't even be shocked. Never mind. I'm not going to say that because one of your family members is one. So I'm not going to, we'll get something afterwards. I'm just telling you the lengths to which people are willing to go. And as long as you give them those 3 days and there's no, who's going to verify these? Come on, folks, come on. You give them those 3 days and will have done. Brenda Snipes used to open up, even though it was already a rule. She used to open up, right, Laura, absentee ballots all the time without the presence of a third party to make sure that was she was abiding by the law. Yeah, in 2016, it was about 150,000 ballots that nobody knew what happened to them, whether or not she opened them correctly. They tried to identify which ballots they were. She just apologized for it, said they were handled correctly, and that was it. We had to just trust it. There are so many different ways that they could do this, and if you give them that 3 extra days to do it, you watch. I will predict right now the break will be way lopsided compared to what the election day and then the pre-counted vote already was. All right, go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
So much for 30 seconds.
Well, it's because a lot of these questions you just simply can't answer in 30 seconds. You can't.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't. And then you'll end up in the Daily Beast taken out of context. They'll get the answer they get.
Little clips. I get it.
Yep.
How many counties will Trump carry in 2020? Over 3,000?
Oh my God, that's a crazy question, but actually kind of a good one. I mean, it's just no is the answer to that. I don't think there are still loads of them that he barely lost that are trending Republican, right? And in Pennsylvania, while we're on Pennsylvania, that's a great example. And then Iowa too, where he lost some by 1.2%. I just think, though, there are also suburban counties, although there'll be less. So it's possible he could net more and end up carrying like 27 and change or something like that. But he won't get the 3,000. He won't. Think about this, folks. It was 2,626 counties that Donald Trump carried in 2016. Even if another 100 counties were drifting Republican, that that he'll take because they're working class counties that he barely lost by like a point or two, whatever. And there's not 100 of them, but I'm just saying, let's assume there was. They're still going to pick up some of those suburban counties that won't flip back from 2018. Many of them will, but a lot of them won't. And that will be enough. And maybe that ends up being a net 70. So he's not going to get to 3,000. That would be a total wipeout. I mean, and just something I just don't think is possible.
All right, Jack Lawton. At least it wasn't like the mayor's poll today, rated A+ by the genius He Who Cannot Be Named. I put that in there.
Good.
Which showed Biden plus 11. Then you look inside and see that they polled 38% non-white voters. In 2016, it was 27%. He also
Are you telling me their poll is, wait a second,
Go ahead.
62% white? Is that what they're telling me?
We're about to see this. He'll reply shortly. And he also wants to know, where will Trump improve the most in 2020 and where will he falter the most compared to 2016?
They're crazy if they think the electorate's going to be 62% white. This is nuts. This is nuts. I think we can have an honest debate about how much Donald Trump is down without coming out with these ludicrous things. Ludicrous. By the way, Maris, they had Claire McCaskill beating Josh Hawley. So while we're on beating up Fox for being wrong in Missouri, Claire McCaskill was up by 3 points in the final Maris poll, rated A+ by You Cannot Be Named. This is crazy. They are the worst. And you know what? That was, if you guys missed what are the odds on Wednesday with Barnes and I, go check it out because we went over Marist in great detail. And he goes back because they were among the worst overestimating Hillary Clinton's lead in the summer leading up to the horse race polls. They were about 6 points worse than everybody else. So, I mean, that's nuts. If they have the electorate 62% white, they're smoking something over there, dude. They're smoking something. The electorate, Biden would be jumping up and down doing jumping jacks if the electorate was 67% white, 66% white. That's crazy. The story in 2016 too that nobody spoke about was how whites ticked back up when their long run share had been going down. And that is because they completely missed the story of the 2012 election, which had nothing to do with Hispanic voters. Yes, they came out as a total votes was more, but their share of the electorate was down. And that's not why Obama was reelected. He was reelected because black women, black voters, but specifically black women, came out en masse to defend him. And they increased the share of the overall black vote, and the white vote share went down less, by the way, than the Hispanic vote share. They are on crack if they think that the white vote is going to be 62%. And then where was the other question? Where will Trump improve the most?
Statewide from 2020, and where will he falter as compared?
Well, therein lies the question. So I think that Trump's biggest pickup opportunities are in Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Maine. That is where I think Donald Trump can pick up states. Brad Parscale did a very big disservice to Donald Trump with his unicorn fantasies about carrying the state of New Mexico and these other crazy places. Even in Nevada, where the race is much tighter than you would think, I'm with Barnes on this. 100%, I'm with him. And I'm now looking at some of the economic numbers that are putting making it real for me, the argument that he was talking about. Before the pandemic, Nevada could have been a flip. Now, with 24.6% insured unemployment rate, I think that is wildly dreaming. And then, of course, you have the absolute ridiculous third world election that they're going to hold over there. And there's just no way to even trust the result, let alone try to compete for the state. It's a waste of money. Donald Trump's vote is going to probably increase with the people that can keep Minnesota really, really competitive. And that is why I think it's a flip opportunity, even if he dips in the suburbs in the Twin Cities because of everything that was going on. There is, like I said, though, the other day, there's some evidence that those people will flee the cities and then just ruin your neighborhood and not live with the consequences of what they have done. All right, their own voting consequences. But that's why among the people he has a chance to increase with, really, they're disproportionately. They live in Minnesota, they live in Maine, and they live in New Hampshire. And that's another reason for the Rust Belt Battleground poll. Minnesota is in that poll. That will be in that poll. He could also increase with Hispanics in Florida. Not could, he will. He's going to increase his share with Hispanics in Florida. Why? Twofold. I'm stunned at his rising approval among Puerto Ricans in Florida. And I really didn't believe it. And then DeSantis and Rick Scott did so well with them. That was a little bit of a shock to me. Usually that's what hurts the Republican candidate in Florida. He's still not majority support, but you tick up a little bit among that group. And Hispanics, you add together the Venezuelans that are flying totally under everybody's radar, and the fact that Cubans are the strongest vote for him, most loyal vote for him. Cuban Republicans, they haven't budged an inch. He could actually improve his margin among Cubans with somebody like Joe Biden, who was in part of the Obama administration. They hated that second term policy toward Cuba. They really hated it. And now you have Venezuelans. So that would be somewhere I would look as well. All right, next one.
I know you probably heard me huff and puff, people, but that was because my laptop is doing funny things. But anyhow, let's see.
Jack, let me just, while you're trying to fix yourself, he lives in Hennepin County in Minnesota. Jack and folks, when the Republicans got shellacked in 2018, a huge story, I think I was the only one who wrote it, there were 3 seats that they flipped that offset that, right? Where were they? 2 were in Minnesota, 1 right by you, Jack, and then the other one in Pennsylvania. The corner of Hennepin County, I've actually convinced your old state representative, or I've been trying to look, if you want to make a race competitive out there, go get, what's her name? She was a very nice woman. I'm forgetting her name, and I'm just not from there, but very nice woman. She lost her seat to a Democrat, and Hennepin had been like that edge of Hennepin had been swinging back, and she lost her seat and could possibly win it back. And I was like, look, you want to make the race competitive, get back in there. 2 of the 3 seats were in Minnesota, and they were among those voters that I'm talking about right now. The other one was in Pennsylvania, which nobody thought Republicans would flip. And they did. There are always these districts that just come out of nowhere and nobody sees coming. The one in Pennsylvania was one of them. But 2 in Minnesota, if you've been paying attention to what people like myself and others have said, and I have been the Minnesota guy, like Minnesota can be flipped. That should not have surprised you. So there you have Republicans getting their butts whooped all over the country in districts that you would think are locks for Republican, Virginia 7, and they flip too in Minnesota because of Trumplicanism. Like it's Trumplicanism. And that is the kind of brand of Republicanism that could take the entire state because it'll increase his vote share in areas like where Jack lives. It's exactly right. I'm so glad I saw that, Jack. That really drives the point home. All right.
All right. We got a Periscope question. Big Blue wants to know, how does it work? Who opens up what? Who's checking who? How many are present when they are opening the ballots?
Yeah. So it depends what state, right? So in Florida with absentee ballots, there's supposed to be somebody present that opens up, when a big chunk of absentee ballots comes in, Brenda Snipes, the old supervisor of elections. By state, it matters. I mean, if you have a specific state. And then in some areas, there are freaking free-for-alls. So my point is, even in a state where there are strict election fraud guideline safeguards, like Florida, and that is because of what happened to us with the hanging chads in 2000. That's why, and it was all bipartisan, by the way. All of those laws were bipartisan. They still have a lot of trouble abiding by them, even in normal years. And that is, so it's supposed to be, most of the time, to answer your question generally, each party has like a lawyer, that's somebody that will oversee it. But, and then there's the whole other aspect of this, Laura, which is that in some of these areas, you're going to have like your Kasich Trump-hating Republicans. And those are the people who are in these local areas. And it's like, so don't count on Democrats, trying to play something funny. They want their party back. They are tired of this guy. And I put nothing past anybody. And I think you'd be really naive to human nature and everything we've seen in the last 3 years to not expect it. Not only expect it.
I don't know if you know the answer to this. Yoda Root said it's a random question. Is it's thou a real person? Pascal retweeted.
Okay. When did can you just follow up real quick on when he retweeted her? Truth be told, I don't know. I have been saying, though, for many years, she seemed to have put out some stuff, and I only became aware of her because I put out something that was a voter file based screenshot and everything. This is what it is in the voter file. Okay. And I think it was about Pennsylvania or Texas or something. And then somebody had said, can you corroborate? Is he telling the truth or something? Right. Some weird, stupid thing. And I'm like, listen, unless she has access to the voter file database that I have access to, she can't even ask that question. I've heard some rumors over the last couple of days that basically that she's been, I don't know, outed or something. There are a lot of people who come on Twitter, and I'm not applying this to her because I don't know for sure, but I am just saying that you should be careful. I call it playing whack-a-fraud. All right. Nobody in the industry knows who the hell they are. Right. None of my pollster friends, none of my vendors, nobody in media, like we just have no idea who they are. And of course, that could be true of a new person who's coming in trying to make their bones. But then, like, I don't know, if you claim to be something of a pollster and you claim to, some vendors should know you, should be able to like corroborate the relationship. Like, for instance, I found one of the phone things that one of the phone service softwares that I use to gather IVR. I switched. We used to use somebody else. I switched and met through Spencer Kimball at Emerson College Polling. We were talking and he was like, oh, we use VoiceInt, right? And I'm like, all right, I'll check them out. And it was just really something that was easy for us to use. So for a while, we used VoiceInt to collect IVR. There's only so many companies in the industry and there's only so many vendors. Somebody's got to know you. And there are these people that just pop up and we have no idea who the hell they are. So I tell people all the time to be very careful, because they're just playing whack-a-fraud constantly. I don't know who the hell these people are. Like, I mean, there's so many of them out there. I just don't know. Like the guy who claims to be a pollster in Florida. I mean, don't listen to that. I mean, nobody even knows who he is, let alone any of where his data comes from. I mean, there's some basic stuff people should be able to tell you. All right, you called 500 people on the phone last night. Where do you get your voter lists? Where do you get your voter? Did you random digital dial, which is trash? Quinnipiac. All right. Did you random digital dial? Did you get it from a voter file? What voter file was it? Okay, you got online responses. Did you get them from SSI, which is now Dynata, like a lot of other people? Like, where the hell did you get it from? And even big media, we're going to do something totally different with the Rust Belt Battleground poll. You're going to see where we're getting it from. We're actually going to partner with these people. So if I run shy and I blast out an email to a bunch of people in the voter file who have email records, then I don't feel like I'm getting enough. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to run to Dynata and say, hey, Michelle, my account manager, who's Michelle, I feel like I need another 150 responses. Can we help you out? Like, people know each other like that in this industry. They shouldn't have no clue who you are. And big media should be doing at least some very bare bones, transparent disclosures as well. Like, and this person, ORC is gone now, but CNN's got a new pollster. Okay, where did they get their voter file from? Right? It's just, this stuff should be known. And you're going to see that if we do raise enough to do the Rust Belt Battleground poll. And to answer the question about that, it's supposed to, it theoretically or ideally, I should say, should be a tracker, because especially if we take the rest of August to try to raise the money to start September, by the time we get to October, you're going to want to see a tracker. Trust me, you are going to want to see a tracker. You're not going to care anymore what the difference was between our September poll and the October poll, and then you'll have November creep up on you really fast. You're going to, at least through October, mid-October, you're going to want to see, if not a daily result, a 3-day rolling average for Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, whatever it is that we do. It will just give you a much, much, much better idea of the way the race is going. It will. All right.
This is a fun question that you're going to like. La Jameson.
I do love that question. I absolutely love that question. I'm trying not to remove you from the screen. She's just audio only, so a little picture. Look, isn't that a cute little picture of us? Isn't that a cute little picture? Hi. That's when I was good looking. Anyway, now you get older. You women don't have the problems. I don't think Connecticut is one that should absolutely be looked at. And there are working class districts from Senate, state Senate, down, where Republicans made these gains that they haven't been able to make in like a quarter century. And then, they yawn on it. It's unbelievable to me. Pennsylvania never looked great in the voter file for them either. What looked great was the demographics. The Northeast is an area that's been so hard hit by liberalism, economic liberalism, that they should be making the case in a lot of areas that they aren't. But for now, in the long term, New Jersey would be very hard, because you have really one little speck in the north and one little speck in the south, where there are a ton of Black and Hispanic voters that are longtime Democrats and liberals. It's very hard for Chris Christie to do what he did. He actually got the backing of a lot of local Democratic leaders, and he was able to win like 20% of the Black vote. You have to do that in order to win New Jersey. The rest of New Jersey is Republican, folks. It is Monmouth County, Ocean County, Mercer. All of those areas are competitive. And in the case of Monmouth and Ocean, they are heavily Republican. But it's hard when you represent such a small share of the population. So it would have to be long-term, and it would have to be something where the Republicans break into, the vote share of one of the minorities groups significantly. But Connecticut, on the other hand, only has one real population center with minority votes that overwhelmingly go for Democrats. And then they have another huge percentage of the vote that is working class. I don't want to say the word suburban lightly because I don't mean the suburbs I mean working class suburbs, and then working class rural areas where they could expand their already dominant lead. And they don't. And if I was to open the voter file for you right now and show you the difference between Pennsylvania and Connecticut, it wouldn't look that much different. Pennsylvania looks ugly. But if you can win 12, 14% of your crossover vote, and you can, consolidate and maximize your own base while swinging independents by low single digits, you can carry a state with that much of a Democratic advantage. And by the way, Trump proved that in Pennsylvania in 2016. We think he won a little bit more than the exit polls say. They said, 12%, Laura, something like that. I was going to. We think our polling, I think, was around 13, which is but he won independents by about 4%. That's it. And he maximized his Republican vote share. Independents have to be a small percentage of the electorate because the more if your opponent is a bigger share, the downside is if you make inroads in their own base, you're taking disproportionately a lot more from them than they're taking from you. So if Joe Biden wins 7% of the Republican vote in Pennsylvania, 7% of 30 is a lot less than 13% or 14% of 43. Okay. And then he is carrying independents, by the way, in Pennsylvania right now by about 5 points. But he needs to, he needs to hold the line on that.
When you switch to just me, it totally cuts me out. So don't do that.
Really?
Yeah, that's what
okay.
I said. So they're hearing me through your mic.
That's what I thought. I told you something's going on. After this, guys, we'll reboot everything. We'll test everything again. She'll be back like with the sultry on Monday.
DC Perspective wants to know.
You want it?
No, just leave it right there.
Why did these people do this?
I was watching an old episode yesterday where you guys were talking about Wisconsin and the security vote. Has Donald Trump's standing changed at all with the independents in places like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania?
He has slipped a little bit with, not in Pennsylvania, but he has slipped a little bit in Wisconsin. And I'm debating right now whether or not it's really a slip. And this is what I mean. For most of 2016, we absolutely had Hillary Clinton win in that state by 3 to 6 points. What happened is Wisconsin, unlike Michigan and Pennsylvania, who have very small shares of independents, Wisconsin has a large share of independents. It's actually, Wisconsin is R+4 in the voter file. If you infer based on who votes and what primaries, it was R5, but after the Democratic primary, the inference ticked down to R4, which means some people who voted in Republican primaries before voted in the Democratic primary. That's actually not a surprise, especially in a very independent state like Wisconsin. So what I mean is there are more people who are already decided and willing to vote in Wisconsin for the Democratic candidate. Same thing with Michigan. And then you have, in the case of Wisconsin, a large share of that independent vote. It was the national security mom. Issues change, though. All right. There are national security moms in those wows. If you watched the other day, you know what I'm talking about. All right. But they have to make that now about law and order and, whatever. If the economy continues on the way, it'll be about economic security, and that how Biden Harris will get your neighborhoods in for it kind of thing. Every election is different. So in 2004, that was about the security mom. But in this election, it's got to be about something else. Those people never really particularly liked Donald Trump. And then in the end, because they were such a big share of the vote, that's how he erased her 3 and upwards of 6 at one point lead, because those people, when they broke for Donald Trump, they broke for him in enough way that it closed the gap. And then those really that central northern share of the state is where they will break last. They will, like southern end of Wisconsin 7 and around that area. So it looks like the Democrat has a lead. So what I'm thinking, and what I mean now by I'm not sure whether they slipped, is that these are swing voters. They swing. And maybe they just don't know who they've decided to vote for yet. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest voters really do decide before they even realize it. And that, they'll just tell you late in the game. But it always gives this like perspective, or it always gives this impression that Democrats are ahead. And in truth, they either stay ahead because those voters decide to go with them, or they lose their lead and Republicans eke through with like 1 to 3 points because they go with them in the end. And they're not going to tell you until the end, right, Laura? The end. Like, this is the last email you are getting. You will not fill out another questionnaire. Please tell us who you intend to vote for. I mean, 3 emails a day, from people we already polled. No, they're undecided. 3 emails a day. You have to decide. Now is the time. It's crunch time. Who are you voting for? It's tough, it's tough.
Joyce wants to know if you'll be doing an election night coverage.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure. Yeah. It's just that it'll probably be like a pop in, pop out thing because I go mad with numbers. Even though it's set up to do as much as possible on its own. I am like this free hand, old school checker, right? Freehand math, longhand, old school checker. I don't trust everything, that comes in. It's crazy. Election night is crazy. It really is. So yeah, but it won't be like I won't be here the entire time. Because if I'm here sitting and talking to you the entire time, then I can't do the work. I can't do the numbers. So maybe we'll have Laura talk to you. And I'll pop in to tell you.
You see how
you're popular. You have a higher favorability rating than I do.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe we'll have Laura pop in and talk to you while, and then I'll come in and I'll tell you, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. And then Laura can keep you company. Okay, this is what's going on. I don't like what I see here for so and so, and I like what I see there for so and so. That maybe we'll do something like that.
Adam's comment. Poor Adam. I'm sorry. Wasdovich.
The overtake pandemic fear comment.
Yeah, like when will the pandemic and economic overtake it?
So school is starting soon, and that's going to be a reality check. It's going to be a gut check too for a lot of parents and a lot of people who are guardians, whatever it may be. That will be a big part of it. And then now is the summer. When the summer ends, comes September and October, and this is why that Labor Day mark, although it's not firm like it used to be, around that Labor Day mark. And then as we start to turn that corner into the holidays, money begins to matter. I spent all my damn money on vacation. I spent my money on this during the summer. It's October. It's almost December. This is how life works. So economics will bump back up after, and then I'm sure by that too, the pandemic will have made gains. If Trump announces a vaccine in October, this race could shift in a heart, right? Mm-hmm. If he's and the reason why is because that's what older folks really want to see. It's true. I'm sure they are and with other polls, I can see where these support for vaccines, and absolutely, I will take a vaccine, is coming from. And if he was to say it's October 5th, I got a vaccine, we got a vaccine, we're going to push out these doses, it's a whole new race, man. That's why he really needs to keep the economy strong if he wants to have a chance. Because if it's going like this, and it's not a reliable recovery, he's going to lose his argument. He's already lost the lead on the economy by a lot, by 15 points. And there are some that actually give Biden an edge. I think that's BS. He's probably got around a 5-point lead on who you trust to handle the economy more. And if this keeps up, what we talked about on Thursday, it'll be a whole new race if there is a new vaccine and there are treatments and we're coming over. He's got to get over the COVID hump. He's got it.
Real interesting question. Evan Bliss. What % of the electorate will be new voters? And are they breaking 2-1 for Biden as the polls show? Are Gary Johnson voters breaking for Trump? Yeah,
that is, those are good questions. We'll actually have a little bit more on what Gary Johnson voters are going to do. That's part of this whole project we're doing. Not going to know everywhere in every state, but I will be able to tell you about that region, which matters. New voters will never be 25% of the electorate like Nate Cohen is claiming they're going to be in his Biden plus 14 poll. New voters always break 2-1 for Democrats. That's traditionally true because they're new, younger voters. In 2016, what happened is that Trump got a lot of new voters that weren't young voters. They were just voters who hadn't participated in an election in 10 years or more. So that's what kind of like helped to offset some of that. And then turnout wasn't really great for Hillary among younger voters anyway. I do think Biden's going to be suffering from younger voter turnout. And it could be catastrophic, like Larry Schweikert has proposed it could be. But he's his whole campaign is geared toward making that up from voters who have been slipping from Republicans. It will never be 25% of the electorate. That's nuts. Folks, what he's proposing is that 26 million out of about 60 million will be new voters. The electorate is not going to be 160 million people. And again, if it's like 160, 180, there's something very wrong, folks. They filled in a lot of ballots because that doesn't happen. Donald Trump increased turnout from 2012. He got about 7 million more than that, maybe. That was 137 million votes. That's it. Total votes. That's all. That's it. That's a wrap. It's not going to be. And if there was something like that to occur, I will scream at the top of my lungs that this is total bullshit. That is not true. That would be like a Putin stolen election. All right. I mean, that would be, like I said yesterday, we got a lot of nerve. We got a lot of nerve criticizing Vladimir Putin with some of the stuff they try to pull here. Vladimir Putin wins, and he wins in landslides. Why the hell would he have to steal an election? I mean, whatever. I mean, he's popular. I've seen third-party polls that are people I trust who have polled Russia. He's popular, Laura. I don't know where they come up with this. Oh, Vladimir, he won 65%. He stole that election.
Well, they love that.
His favorability rating, 75%.
What was he like?
The bareback
on the horse with the gun in his hand.
no shirt, like I'm a man. They do, but they love that in especially rural Russia. They love that stuff. They're like, that's a Russian man. They love that stuff. All right, you know it's 12:22.
Yeah, I do. But you have it's Freewheeling Friday, and you took too much time.
Some questions have got to be answered thoroughly, but I'll give you one more question.
Rachel wants to know how you get back the elderly vote.
So if he gets over that COVID hump, they will come back, especially with, look, I don't think Kamala Harris on the ticket was a great move. And I'm not convinced that the elderly vote is that bad anyway. I'm not. I'll find out soon enough myself. And I will say this, Michigan was a very tricky state to poll because those older white votes did not follow the pattern that they did in the rest of the country prior to 2016, which is to say they were still Democrats. And they were like, very difficult to get an opinion out of. You had to take what are they? The teeth extractors? Oh, yes. And if you could imagine me sitting on their lap with my hand down their jaw trying to pull out their opinion. That's the way it was. They didn't want to tell you. But they are Obama voters. They are Kerry voters, and they voted for Donald Trump. So those are the votes he really has to worry about. I am not worried about Florida, folks. I'm not. I'm just not worried about it. They're not going to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They're just I don't see it. All right.
Bryce Patel wants to know, is the suburban shift away from Trump a myth or reality?
No, there are some shifts away. There is a bigger divide. And I went over this in another show at which I really would point people to. The suburban vote is not the suburban vote that Mitt Romney had to deal with in 2012, all right? Who Mitt Romney won, it's not the same. You have people who migrate out of some of those neighborhoods and go to rural America. You have people who are new naturalized citizens. It's not so much the suburban vote. It's their definition of what a suburb is, okay? So when they're talking about the educated, middle to high income, educated voter in a suburb where the house is like $500,000, that is the voter Mitt Romney did well with that Donald Trump doesn't. Okay. there's also a metro component to it, because if you go to the rich suburbs around us, you won't see a Biden sign anywhere, okay? He hasn't slipped by the harbor. They got Trump flags all over their boats, their freaking yachts, right, Laura? It's a cultural thing. And it's just not as simple as they try to make it out to be. That's why Ohio did not move that much for them. They didn't do that well in certain suburbs, and they were beaten back in other places that if the media definition or the media narrative were to hold, we would have saw slippage in, and we didn't, because it's not exactly the story they're telling. And also, the newer people who are moving into those communities, in those neighborhoods, they are not, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, they're not naturalized citizens, many of them. The new ones are disproportionately native born. They are disproportionately different voters. So that's another part of the equation as well. All right, one more, and I got to kick rocks. One more.
Oh, you're so sweet. So two more.
Okay. I got my thing blowing up over here. One more.
Me too. Michael Myers wants to know, do you...
Oh my God! Just kidding.
Oh.
It's the coolest name ever, dude.
Do you know the conservative treehouse? The guy who runs it talks about releasing something about Durham on Saturday.
I saw that, and I know he thinks that it's a head fake over there. He's done some good work over there. He has, from digging into things. I'll reserve judgment, though. All I can tell you, I don't know John Durham. I don't know Bill Barr. All I can tell you is what I have learned from other people, which is that I think they'll do their best to try to, if you're a Trump supporter and you're pissed off about the two-tier justice system, I think they will do their best to try to assuage, to try to make you feel better. All right. I just don't think they're going to, it's hard to go after these people. It's hard. They're not going to want to lower them. This is the best way to put it. Okay. They're not going to want to lower themselves to the standard of Robert Mueller and Andrew Weissman. They're not going to make themselves into pigs to beat pigs. Okay. They're just not. They're not going to want to do that. And I feel like it's not that I think he'll be letting you down, or if you're a Trump supporter. I just think that they are true institutionalists. Mm-hmm. And to the left, that means they're Trump hacks. To the right, that means they're not doing a good enough job.
Witchfinder said the indictment was already announced during your show.
It was, huh? Which one was it? Because, we're doing the show here, but nothing earth-shaking. I'm sure they didn't perp walk home me is what I'm saying. I just don't, I feel like, that's just Chad Wolf. It looks like it's been Chad Wolf. Okay. That really, no, what am I talking about? I thought that came from Chad Wolf's office. It didn't. He'd be the Justice Department anyway. I don't know. I'll look at it and I'll get back to you on, you know me, guys. I don't like to talk about something I haven't seen yet, but I just don't expect Brennan to be, and I think Brennan did stuff wrong. I do. I don't know. I'll reserve judgment. I'll reserve it. They are institutionalists who will want to try to reinstill faith in the institution with people who feel like it's been slighted without stooping to the level of those that they feel like they need to clean up. Is that the best answer I could possibly give? I'm trying to be.
Awesome, because Angela Rommel wants to know, how big of a popular vote loss can Trump take and still
That's a
win
great.
The
electoral college. That's a great question. You know what? I'm going to keep going because that is a great question. I think, and I was called a nut. I was look, in 2016, it is very possible that Donald Trump will lose the electoral college. Win the electoral college, but lose the popular vote by, several points. And that's crazy. And if you remember, folks, if some of you remember, it was actually the opposite. People were saying in media that Trump could win the popular vote, but lose the electoral college because of the way the polls were. All right. That was never true. If you look at the census, folks, it used to be many years ago, and I'm just saying this from a pollster's point of view. National polls used to be a leading indicator on how the battleground states would move. So if you had somebody with a lead in a state, but then somebody overtook a lead in the national polling, you would expect the battleground states and the rest of the country to move in that direction. That is no longer the case because, and the census bears this out, when the new one is released, it's going to continue on the trend that I have been talking about. the national electorate, the national population, does not mirror the battleground states as closely as it used to. The coastal divide, the coastal and middle divide, is becoming bigger in terms of population, in terms of beliefs, everything. It's getting worse. Iowa, and this is why the push, by the way, for Democrat, especially on the Democratic side, to change the caucus, early caucus states, to change who gets to vote first in the primary. And you heard that a lot. These are white states. These are whiter states. New Hampshire, Iowa, we don't even get a minority vote until this, week in the contest. That's why they're saying that, because it used to be that the national vote would be relatively close. And Wisconsin looked a lot like the national electorate. And now it looks more like Iowa than it does the national electorate. And, this has changed. And that's been in large part due to immigration, years and years of it. And then, of course, migration in response to immigration. It's not the way it used to be. So how much could he lose it by? If the census is correct, and early indications show that this will continue. So if Trump lost it by 3 points, almost 3 points in 2016, if I was Joe Biden, I would be very nervous if my lead was not a big above 5 points nationally. Mm-hmm. I think Donald Trump could lose the electoral college, lose the national popular vote by 5 points and still hold the electoral college. They lost it by 10 in 2018, yet Ron DeSantis still won statewide in Florida. They made no gains in Ohio. All right. It could absolutely happen. Absolutely. All right. I think once you get above like 6 points and more, you're looking at just a tipping point where it's a wrap, folks. It's a wrap. All right. Listen, go ahead, Laura. Go ahead. One more, and then it's a wrap for me, okay?
All right. Sir wants to know, what about New Hampshire Senate race? And wants to know, do you think Trump's share of the vote will be lower than his approval rating, or higher than his approval rating?
Higher. It'll be higher.
Oh, wow. That was good.
And it is a good question. It'll be higher than his approval rating. His share of the vote will definitely be higher than his approval rating. There is this, and we saw this even, it's hard to gauge it when he's not on the ballot, but, there have been races where he was like a proxy and went in there and helped. There is a section of the electorate typically that will vote for the incumbent, even though they don't approve or say outwardly that they approve of the incumbent. That's why that number, 47% approval, 48% approval, has been traditionally where incumbents wanted to be. George W. Bush, he just wanted to get to 47, 48, okay? Because he knew that there would be some people who wouldn't want to take the chance on changing course, and they would stick with the incumbent, as has traditionally been the case, all right? With Donald Trump, his approval rating, his general overall approval rating, is so much lower than typical. And it's not because they don't approve of him on the issues, because when you dive into the issues and you ask, well, okay, do you approve of him? No, I don't. And they're telling you that because they don't like him and they don't like his attitude. Okay, thinking about the economy specifically, do you approve or disapprove? It'll shoot up. Thinking about this issue, whatever it may be, he almost outpolls the overall approval rating on almost every single issue. All right. And those people there's a larger share of the electorate who will not tell you that they approve of Donald Trump, who will vote for him. It's almost like the complete opposite of Barack Obama, where they thought he was cool, they liked him, but they didn't like him on the issues. So his approval rating was actually higher in some polls than his vote share. But generally speaking, Obama even followed the same trend, even in 2012. When he became the first president to win re-election with a smaller percentage of the popular vote and a smaller electoral college margin. Still, in the end, there were people who said, I'm going to stick with Barack Obama. That's echoing back pretty badly. I don't know why, but it is. Anyway, yeah, Trump's bigger. And his favorability rating was in, the dump. In Ohio, we had his favorability rating at about 42%, which was higher in the Rust Belt than it was nationwide. they were not polling the battleground states. The story in 2016 was always about his national favorability rating. But when we polled in the battleground states, Ohio, even Michigan did not like Hillary Clinton. And that was a big problem for her. They didn't like either one of them, but he outperformed her on that metric slightly. In Ohio, for instance, it was 42% and his vote share was about 9 points higher. So that's big. That's big for a typical candidate, and that doesn't translate totally into approval. But I'm really taken back by some of these polls, Fox poll being one of them, where his approval was at like 49, 51% during the pandemic, yet his vote share was only 40. That doesn't happen. And if it did happen, it'd be the first time in the history of presidential politics when it did. All right. But listen, everyone, I want to thank you for joining us today on Inside the Numbers. It's 12:35. I do got to bug out and go do some editorial duties. And also, I'm going to finish doing the questionnaire. This way, I can show you guys the questionnaire and link it to the GoFundMe for the Rust Belt Battleground poll. You just gave me another idea. You guys do it all the time. I'm going to add masks. We're going to talk about vaccines. Of course, we will specifically target right now those 6 states. All right. So keep an eye out for it. Of course, Barnes and I will really, try to get it out to as many people as we can on Wednesday. All right. But
see you on Cotto.
yeah, don't forget to view us on Cotto. Okay. Listen, again, 4:00 is when I'm going to interview. I can't believe I didn't ask him, but Joseph Cotto's show. It's a great show about polling. Check it out. Don't forget to tune in there. The interview's at 4. All right. And I'll tweet it out too. All right. But, like the page, People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. Don't forget, and don't play me, folks. I know you're on Facebook. You guys are bumping that up. That's good. We neglected it for far too long. Let's try to get it up there a little bit. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube if you enjoy the show. Thank you to everyone who has done, because it's becoming a life of its own after just a little bit. And that's really, we feel the love. We love you back. We feel blessed. And then the subscribers to PPD. That is, of course, the ultimate way to support the show. ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Clearly an uptick in subscribers since the beginning of this show. We love you guys. That's amazing. And we thank you from the bottom of our heart. If you guys do drop something in the box, like some of you have been doing, we really like you guys to get some like data for your dollar. We'd rather you subscribe so you can follow all the indicators and metrics. I've been taking the minute to just like drop everybody like a personal thank you. That is me. So that is me email. I just wanted to let you guys know there is no automated email. I am emailing you to thank you because we appreciate it that much. All right. Don't forget to watch me on Cotto. All right. And Don Smith at noon tomorrow, the Don Smith Show. I'll always tweet it out. We'll do our weekly recap. And then, of course, Monday, 10 a.m. We're back at that 10 a.m. slot. We're going to keep it. We're going to hold it. When we did our research with you guys anyway, that was the number one outside of Brett Baer, 6 o'clock. But 10 is better. So we're going to stick with that. All right. So 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday. Again, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, folks. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit. Follow PPD on Twitter at PPD News. And we love you. Have a great and safe weekend. See you on Monday.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. lingering, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow